It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, How Small and Medium-Sized Countries Cope in the Great Changes. 1868, the Danish Crown Prince Frederick and the only daughter of King Carl XVI of Sweden, Princess Louisa, will hold their wedding in Copenhagen on December 12, 1868. William IV will bring Queen Alexandra to Copenhagen, Denmark, to attend the wedding. The coping methods of small and medium-sized countries in the Great Changes. After arriving in Copenhagen on December 2, 1868, His Majesty William IV said in an interview with the Luxembourg European Times that although small countries cannot influence major international situations, this does not mean that small countries are insecure and cannot take the initiative to grasp their own future. Participating in this Danish royal wedding will be one of the stops on William IV's itinerary. Another reason is that Copenhagen is the venue for the Nordic Union King Summit. Queen Alexandra of the Netherlands is the sister of Crown Prince Frederick, so William IV is the son-in-law of the Kingdom of Denmark. At the same time, with the Swedish princess joining William IV, the brother-in-law, the alliance relationship between the three countries will become closer. They can all get together at the same table. William IV, who had attended the wedding but had not yet entered the King's Summit, was interviewed by the accompanying Danish media on December 2. When asked how small countries such as Denmark should deal with themselves in Europe and the world, he said that although small countries cannot influence major international trends, this does not mean that small countries are insecure and cannot take the initiative to grasp their own future. He said that if small countries can cooperate, they can speak louder and more effectively unite most countries to play a certain role. As the relationship between European powers continues to be tense, the confrontation in this region of Europe has become more and more obvious, which has put pressure on small and medium-sized countries. William IV answered questions from Danish and international reporters and put forward the Dutch view on how small and medium-sized countries should deal with the risks of great power games. There is a view that the great power game means that small and medium-sized countries must choose sides in diplomacy and need to get closer to the great powers and military to gain security. However, this is not the only answer. William IV's statement shows that small and medium-sized countries still have the choice of maintaining their own independent foreign policy. William IV further pointed out that the great powers have the power and influence of the great powers, but still hope to get the support and approval of other countries. This view is supported by a lot of facts. During the Crimean War, the British Empire and other countries took a large number of collective measures to punish the Russian Empire for invading the Ottoman Empire. However, what was more important was that they united with most of the major European powers in the military and united the collective strength of Western European countries in the economy. This was the same as when they dealt with His Majesty Napoleon I of the French Empire. In this regard, Britain was very handy. In America, the United States of America was relatively independent. Britain also proposed to cooperate with its Portuguese compatriot Brazil to curb the development of the United States of America on the basis of its existing local allies, such as the Confederate States of America in the South, its overseas territories Canada and Chile. In order to maintain the global financial status of the British Empire, London even used the Rothschild family to disrupt the financial order of countries around the world in order to get a glimpse of the weaknesses of various countries. Therefore, in order to protect itself, the Netherlands also proposed to establish Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru and other South American alliances on the basis of its previous allies, and proposed to establish an American economic framework to gather the support of small and medium-sized countries in the Americas to maintain the Netherlands' leadership in the Americas. The European Times further reported that the game between the major European powers has been escalating. When the British Empire was challenged by the new and old powers on the European continent, it proposed a more military and diplomatic balancing action on the European continent. To this end, the Netherlands, in response to the British compression of the space for small countries, formed various organizations. The Netherlands aimed to expand its influence in the region and then attracted countries from all over the world to join. Almost all of these countries entered the organization formed by the Netherlands under the threat of big powers around them. In particular, the establishment of the International Hague Court has allowed the world to see a different pattern. Recently, the Netherlands is more suitable to prepare to establish a new organization, the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. The Netherlands intends to form a plan of the Pacific Seven Alliance with the United States of America, Spain, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru to strengthen relations with Pacific coastal countries, so as to hedge against the military and diplomatic offensives of the British Empire and the French Empire in the Pacific. The European Times said that William Ivey said that small countries have their own views and opinions. If they can be systematically and logically expounded, they will have a certain role in market in the international community, which is also supported by history. During the European Wars of Napoleon I, many small and medium-sized member states and free states refused to join the confrontation between the two major groups in order to maintain their own diplomatic independence and actively support the initiative of not participating in the war, and finally obtained the status of neutral countries. Even now, the number of neutral countries is increasing, and similar actions are not uncommon. For example, the Balkan Peninsula War between the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, the Civil War between the North and South in America, and the invasion war launched by the French Empire in the Kingdom of Siam, which seriously damaged the interests of European countries in the Kingdom of Siam. At this time, the Netherlands automatically organized and launched sanctions against France, and launched several small and medium-sized country forums, so that small European and American countries can formulate common positions on issues of mutual concern and make a more powerful voice in the world. In recent years, the Netherlands has also launched a number of world-class organizations to form global governance institutions. The purpose of the Netherlands is not to enhance its own influence. Of course, it would be false to say that it does not, but it is more to promote small and medium-sized countries that are as weak as the Netherlands to increase their weight in negotiations or bargaining with major powers. Of course, there are more links with major powers. The European Times said that William Ivey believed that the French Empire began to emphasize that the war in the Far East was not a war, which led to the argument that France was safeguarding its own interests. William Ivey believed that even the French themselves did not believe the reasons given by their own government, let alone other countries in the world. Therefore, the Netherlands needs to conduct more consultations with other countries on this issue. At the same time, William Ivey also said that the Netherlands was unwilling to get involved too much in Prussia's invasion of other countries in the German Confederation, but the Netherlands would listen to the views of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was once a member of the German Confederation, and would seriously consider whether these reasons were reasonable, and then convey them to Berlin to help Vienna. These confrontational actions, the European Times believes, are unlikely to stop in the short term. Chapter 452 Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Summit. The European Times quoted political expert Herman van Peelong as saying that the confrontation between the major powers is unlikely to end in the short term. In late December this year, the United States of America will hold a general election for the power arrangement of the Republican Party and the Dutch United States of America. At the same time, Spain, a southern European ally of the Netherlands, will hold midterm elections in January. Both governments are facing political challenges in their respective domestic affairs. Whether their domestic allies succeed or fail in gaining power will have a serious impact on the Netherlands' international layout. Not only the Netherlands, but even the French Empire and the British Empire are paying close attention. Precisely because of this, these two countries will certainly not easily show weakness to the outside world. Therefore, many diplomats in the Netherlands are currently very worried about whether their toughness against the outside world will burn the Netherlands, or whether their toughness against Britain and other countries will eventually force the Netherlands to participate in other people's wars. The experts said that the tense angels caused by the game between major powers will continue to be staged and strengthened in Europe and even the entire Atlantic in the short term, and the Atlantic New Year must be mentally prepared for this. Herman van Peelong, a famous Dutch political commentator, said that facing the political and diplomatic pressure from Britain, France and other countries, the Netherlands is also seeking support and affirmation from other countries, including the hope to gather more countries to form more international organizations to strategically build good relationships. At the recently established Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Foreign Ministers meeting, the Dutch Foreign Minister Bismarck van publicly called on the countries in the organization to be positive, stable and constructive forces in the world to balance the influence of major powers such as Britain, France and Prussia in the world. Bismarck van's words confirmed another negative example of the views of King William Ivey of the Netherlands, which is the French Empire. After the French Empire entered the Kingdom of Siam in the Far East and Southeast Asia, It found that those who lost their way had few supporters. Not only did it face the cold eyes of the entire European powers, but it also had to face the joint sanctions of small and medium-sized countries. Even the original circle of friends such as Spain and Portugal in the Iberian Peninsula, which were pro-French or non-anti-French countries, could keep their distance, resulting in Paris falling into serious diplomatic isolation. Herman Van Rompuy stressed that under such a background, the reminder from King William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands on the cooperation and unity of small and medium-sized countries is undoubtedly timely and important. He also pointed out that in the increasingly complex international situation formed by Europe and the United States, if small and medium-sized countries cannot unite sincerely, they will inevitably face increasing pressure to choose sides and fall into a dangerous dilemma. It is at this time that the Nordic Alliance and the South American Alliance formed by the Netherlands, as well as the more influential International Court of Justice in The Hague, are like a clear spring in the turbid river, making them unique. As soon as this news published by the European Times came out, Europe and the entire Atlantic Ocean were shocked. Regardless of big countries, medium countries and small countries, they were all attracted by the attitude of King William IV and the views of Herman Van Rompuy. Among them, small and medium-sized countries were even more delighted, while big countries were silent. If small countries unite, how can big countries bully small countries in the future? The Netherlands' provocation naturally made big countries very unhappy. So many articles refuting Herman Van Rompuy's views appeared in newspapers that could influence various countries. They wanted to use this to guide public opinion, but the other small and medium-sized countries that were awakened by William IV of the Netherlands were more vigilant and would not be easily persuaded by them. Britain and the Dutch foreign ministers met in Rotterdam to discuss the Netherlands' regional role in the Pacific on December 2, 1868. Dutch Foreign Minister Hesbert Van and British Foreign Secretary Russell met in Rotterdam, the second largest city in the Netherlands. The two countries had an in-depth discussion on the role of the Netherlands in the Pacific region after the Netherlands established the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. The British Foreign Ministry said that Foreign Secretary Russell also expressed the British Empire's views on some sensitive issues, including the Netherlands' position and role in Europe, the Netherlands' development in Africa, and the Netherlands' influence in North and South America. Russell specifically raised the issue of Britain's interests in the United States and South America being eroded by the Netherlands, and the Netherlands' challenge to Britain in terms of economic status. Russell also raised the importance of the Netherlands and France maintaining peace and stability in Belgium. In this regard, Dutch Foreign Minister Hesbert Van said in a statement that the Netherlands respects the status and influence of the United Kingdom in the Pacific region and hopes to develop more multilateral cooperation projects with the United Kingdom in the Pacific region. Hesbert Van said, while the Netherlands cooperates with influential parties around the Pacific, it can also work in parallel with the forces of other parties in the region. They can complement each other. Earlier on November 28, at the Prime Minister Presidential Level Summit of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership hosted by the Hawaiian Islands of the Netherlands, in a joint statement issued by the organization, the 8 countries of the Netherlands, the United States, Spain, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru jointly emphasize the importance of regional unity and the excellent role of the existing regional framework, such as all parties supporting and participating in the International Court of Justice in The Hague. When this organization was established, Britain obviously began to compete with the French Empire to strengthen relations, so the turmoil caused by several countries in the Pacific Ocean has attracted more attention. On December 3, 1868, the Dutch Foreign Minister and Chief Deputy Minister Venus visited the Russian Empire's capital, St. Petersburg. After meeting with Gorchakov, the two countries expressed that they would conduct regular cooperation in the Pacific and deepen the mutual visits of their warships. On the 4th, the Russian Empire became the first partner country of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Organization, which aroused the dissatisfaction of insightful people in France, Britain, Prussia and other countries. They believed that the countries that had been on guard against the Russian Empire's breakthroughs in the ocean had been taken advantage of by the Russian Empire. Instead of making breakthroughs in the Baltic Sea, the Norwegian Sea, the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean, they got an opportunity to break the blockade in the Far East. The Netherlands' closeness to Tsarist Russia made other countries very angry. For this reason, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Amsterdam was asked to meet with the heads of ambassadors of these countries every day. Obviously, the Netherlands was panicked by releasing Tsarist Russia from the cage of the Far East. Prussian Prime Minister Bismarck, who was visiting Paris and meeting with French Prime Minister Olivier, said at a press conference in Paris after the meeting, the Prime Ministers of Britain, France and Prussia will hold a meeting in London on December 10. He said that this would be an opportunity to consider the specific issues before us, including, for the first time, security issues involving other places outside of Europe, including the Pacific Ocean that threaten the interests of the three countries. Chapter 453, Triple Alliance of Britain, France and Prussia. On the other hand, the Germanic organization will be held in Berlin early next year. Many people predict that the division of the Germans makes the organization seem less aggressive than when it was first established. It seems that it may become a Germanic country to discuss the growing interest of the Netherlands in the Pacific region. William IV held talks with Karl XV and Christian IX in Copenhagen, Denmark. The three parties agreed to strengthen cooperation in Nordic security, and William IV said that he would invite the two countries to become partners of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership in the future. The Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the three countries emphasized in the talks the importance of the Netherlands' contact and communication with Sweden and Denmark in the way of promoting the Nordic Union formed by the three countries as a priority, supporting regional institutions such as the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership, and responding to major challenges in the Pacific region. Danish King Christian IX said that Denmark and Sweden believe that it is appropriate to consider some suggestions that are conducive to peace through a forum of countries around the Pacific. It is implied that Sweden and Denmark both support the Netherlands' decision to form the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. British Prime Minister Disraeli has again expressed concern about Dutch ambitions in the Pacific and reiterated that Amsterdam is increasingly assertive in our shared region. Financial Times. The recent growing interest in the Pacific and the change in the diplomatic and military policy positions of some of the region's most important players pose a fundamental threat to the European order of interests that has been brought about over the past few decades or centuries, Disraeli said in a speech at the Oxford Institute of International Affairs, a London think tank, on Friday. Disraeli pointed out that it would be wrong to blame France for the current situation simply because of the French Empire's invasion of Siam. Although the British policy of believing that France should not invade the peace-loving kingdom of Siam has not changed, we oppose anyone taking advantage of this to seek benefits that are beneficial to their own diplomacy. Of course, the British Empire is currently closely observing the nature of the activities of the Dutch and French empires in the region. The British Prime Minister also mentioned that the rule of law in the Pacific region has been challenged, and said that there have been predatory islands occupied there, which have hindered the freedom of navigation of many European countries and posed a threat to the maritime navigation of various countries. The Netherlands and the United Kingdom are currently important players in the Pacific. The two countries are also the biggest rivals in the Indian Ocean. The United Kingdom previously chose to trade Australia to the Netherlands in exchange for the South African territory under the Dutch Boers of South Africa. At the same time, because the United Kingdom had lost troops in South Africa and the Balkans and the Civil War, the United Kingdom had always been trying to start new wars with other countries. However, it seems that during this period of quiet, the United Kingdom has begun to recover a lot of vitality. At the same time, as rumors spread, the Dutch maritime actions seemed to have violated the bottom line of the United Kingdom, so the United Kingdom began to put pressure on the Netherlands. But Britain was too powerful, especially Britain seemed to want to ease relations with another great power, France, and even seemed to want to relieve France of the invading kingdom of Siam, which made other countries more wary. So the result that Britain might get was exactly the opposite. The entire Pacific region was worried that Britain and France intended to establish a new military joint operation in the Pacific. Perhaps feeling that the opportunity to thaw relations with Britain had come, Napoleon III sent Prime Minister Olivier to London on December 6 to prepare for the British, French and Prussian Prime Ministers' Conference. Bismarck also set off in Berlin. On December 10, 1868, the Prime Ministers of Britain, France and Prussia expressed their concerns about the establishment of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership, including the Netherlands, in a joint statement after their meeting. The British Empire, the French Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia should strengthen their contacts with all member states of the organization, including the Netherlands. British Prime Minister Disraeli held a closed meeting with Olivier and Bismarck at 10 Downing Street on the same day. At the subsequent press conference, Disraeli emphasized that the British government had no intention of issuing orders to the parties around the Pacific, but to cooperate with them, and pointed out that we still have more work to do in these matters for all forces in the Pacific. The British Empire, The French Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia are concerned about the Netherlands' attempt to expand its influence in the Pacific region. The prime ministers of the three countries believe that it is necessary to hold more contacts with all governments other than the Netherlands. French Prime Minister Olivier said that the French Empire and the United Kingdom have the same position and have a strong consensus on promoting the common interests of the West in the Pacific and focusing on the three parties in the Pacific to make decisions to safeguard their interests. Bismarck expressed the hope that the Pacific would not become a monopoly area. It should belong to the world, not to individual organizations. The three issued a joint voice, expressing concerns about the establishment of the organization signed by the Netherlands and the member states of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. Britain, France and Prussia have the same concern that an ocean needs more defenders, not just a small number of countries. Only with the cooperation of all people can the Pacific region establish lasting peace, rather than the military and political presence of a single organization. Otherwise, it will fundamentally change the strategic balance in the Pacific region and even the world, and pose a national security concern to our three countries. An anonymous senior British official revealed that Disraeli, Olivier and Bismarck also discussed the challenges facing the Pacific and Indian Ocean regions, and if necessary, the three countries may prevent the recurrence of the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. The senior British official also said that the three prime ministers must engage with the Pacific countries, as well as Britain, France and Prussia to carry out closer cooperation, and continue to increase efforts to participate more effectively in Indo-Pacific affairs. Bismarck visited London for the first time since 1866, when he served as Prime Minister for the second term in 1862. During his visit to the UK, he was grandly received by Queen Victoria at Buckingham Palace. Oliver's meeting was a simple work-related one. Obviously, from the attitude of the British royal family, it can be seen that Britain seems to prefer dealing with Prussia rather than Paris, France. This surprised many people in Paris and London, but it also made sense. Britain and France are arch-enemies. Britain and Prussia were once allies and are still strategic partners. The treatment is naturally different. Observers pointed out that after more than 2 years of settling down, Prussia has almost digested all the territories annexed by the German Confederation. Bismarck's attendance at the London Three-Nation Conference this time may represent that the Prussian kingdom, which is so powerful in Europe, seems to be about to come out again. For this reason, many people began to worry about the Netherlands, because recently, the Netherlands seems to have a bad relationship with Prussia. Will the Netherlands be the next target of Prussia's attack? Chapter 454, Sigh from Berlin. Just as the 8 countries formed the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership, to everyone's surprise, the British Governor-General of India, Sir John Larimer Lawrence, openly visited South Vietnam, a colony of the French Empire, on December 15, 1868. There he was warmly welcomed by the French Governor-General. In his public speech in South Vietnam, Sir John Larimer Lawrence said that he did not oppose the French position on his personal position, but the British Empire must oppose France's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam from a moral standpoint. In response, the Dutch Far East Deputy Prime Minister in Sydney, Chancellor Van Hall, responded that the Dutch government's diplomatic contacts had received positive responses from relevant countries around the Pacific. On December 16, 1868, after attending the wedding of the Crown Prince of Denmark and the Princess of Sweden, William IV met with the Russian Emperor Alexander II, who was also visiting Denmark to attend the wedding, in Copenhagen. He was accompanied by King Carl XV of Sweden and King Christian IX of Denmark. William IV said, "The Netherlands is undoubtedly competing with anyone, and has no interest in participating in geopolitical competition. The Netherlands does not want to build a so-called sphere of influence." In response, Alexander II expressed his understanding of the Netherlands' difficulties. He agreed that the Netherlands must take a certain initiative in the political situation, so as to ensure that the Netherlands can obtain sufficient security dominance. "We are not opposed to the Netherlands' approach. The Russian Empire has been in contact with the Netherlands for many years, so what the Netherlands does is understood by the Russian Empire," Alexander II said. "Thank you very much for your understanding, Your Majesty." William IV looked at Alexander II and said word by word, "The Norwegian Sea is too narrow, and the Baltic Sea seems to be heavily guarded by various countries. The Netherlands is directly against the Russian Empire to increase its operations in the ocean, especially military operations. I think the Far East will be a breakthrough for the Netherlands and the Russian Empire to make," William IV said politely. After the two finished speaking, they looked at each other and laughed. King Carl XVI of Sweden next to him showed his joy, and King Christian IX of Denmark was also very satisfied. If the Russian Empire focuses on the Far East, the threat to Sweden from the Norwegian Sea or the Baltic Sea will plummet, and Sweden will benefit the most. Denmark is also in danger of fighting with Russia to a certain extent because of its military joint defense policy with Sweden and the Netherlands. At this time, the agreement reached by the Netherlands has reduced the crisis of war to a certain extent, and Sweden can use more labor to develop the economy and develop the sea colony economy. The same is true for Denmark. The Netherlands has gained more strategic crises and opportunities. The agreement reached by the four countries will cause a semi-encirclement of the Kingdom of Prussia, which is a neighbor of the four countries. This has won Denmark and the Netherlands more political leverage that makes Britain afraid to act rashly. What the world does not know is that because of this meeting between the four people, the Netherlands has gained more living space. The future political watershed of the world has thus emerged. In addition to attending the wedding, William IV also signed several agreements with Denmark and Sweden, covering the training of the three countries' armies, marine fishery cooperation, economic cooperation management, and so on. The Netherlands signed an agreement with the Russian Empire. The Netherlands will help the Russian Empire build 2 steam battleships at the Dutch East India Company's warship manufacturing base on Paradise Island, New Guinea in the Far East. The delivery time is 1872 to 1875. In addition, the Russian Empire also purchased several sailing battleships from the Netherlands as a set. It can be said that it almost ordered a small fleet from the Netherlands. The total amount exceeded £300,000 after the discount. The four countries can be said to be happy. The Russian Empire has obtained a stronger navy. Sweden and Denmark were relieved to see that the powerful fleet that the Russian Empire was about to obtain was deployed in the Far East. The Netherlands not only obtained a huge order, but also gained an important ally in the Far East, which can effectively check and balance Britain and France. Prussia can also be intimidated in Europe. It can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. On December 19, 1868, Dutch Minister of Justice Ross attended the meeting of member states of the International Hague Court Organization. At the meeting, he failed to sign a joint statement with all member states condemning the British Governor-General of India for supporting France's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. Unlike France, there are deviations in the stance of various countries towards Britain. The Netherlands, Sweden, the United States of America, the Kingdom of Siam, Spain, and Argentina strongly support the condemnation of Britain, while Denmark, Greece, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru hold a moderate attitude. Peru, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, and Brazil hold opposing views. At this time, Britain's influence suddenly emerged, and everyone at this moment suddenly understood that Britain is indeed greater than France. In response to this matter, the British Empire promised to support countries to better understand the British Empire's position, and said that the relevant agreement failed to sign the position, showing how opaque and unwelcome the anti-British proposals put forward by the Netherlands during the consultations with member states of the International Court of Justice in The Hague were. However, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the Netherlands is in line with the positions of various countries and has a strong consensus on promoting countries to make decisions with the Netherlands on justice, values, and where to focus strategic priorities. Kingdom of Prussia, Berlin, Berlin Palace. After more than 10 years of dedicated efforts, the strategic landscape of the Pacific region has undergone profound changes, and the Netherlands' influence may have been far ahead. Prime Minister Bismarck said to William I, "Your Majesty, this is undoubtedly a deeper relationship, and it goes far beyond trade. It involves a more all-encompassing relationship." The Netherlands has established sustained economic and diplomatic relations with many influential countries in the Pacific on a bilateral basis. But the draft document recently released by the Netherlands goes beyond normal relations, but is a plan that seems to be important in configuring the political, security and economic framework of this region. Stephen is the director of the Berlin University Strategic Research Institute, the most influential think tank in the Kingdom of Prussia. He said, in addition to causing more economic cooperation, what is more worrying is that this agreement may undermine the balance in the Pacific region and affect the interests of various countries there. Bismarck praised the channel. The Netherlands has clearly expressed its intentions, as do Britain and France, and so does Spain. These countries obviously hope to bring new forces and strength to the Pacific. He said with an unhappy face, "Among the big countries, we Prussia do not have many colonies, especially in the Pacific region." In response, several people were silent. Stephen said with regret, "If it weren't for the Dutch, we could just let Secretary of State Seward of the United States continue to consolidate his strength and take over the Hawaiian Islands and the Alaska Peninsula as he originally planned. Then, according to our original plan, the Germans would take over the power of the United States and form an alliance with Prussia, which had merged with the German Confederation. As powerful countries on both sides of the Atlantic, the two countries would change the situation of Britain's industrial dominance and even challenge each other in terms of naval power in the near future. Unfortunately, now it has helped the Netherlands." Chapter 455, Provocations from the Far East and Southeast Asia. Upon hearing this, King William I of Prussia could not help but sigh. "That's right. Who could have thought that the Netherlands would suddenly emerge and pick the peaches we have planted for a long time?" Stephen, director of the Strategic Research Institute of the University of Berlin, "The Netherlands is currently managing allies in Europe because of local constraints, but the Far East is developing rapidly. According to the estimates of our Strategic Research Institute of the University of Berlin," he looked at William I and Bismarck and said urgently, "if no one stops the development of the Netherlands, then in less than 20 years, the economy there will at least reach the level of Western Europe. Australia, New Guinea, and the East Indies, an Indo-Pacific center with a large land area, will be absolutely unparalleled in terms of radiation influence. I am afraid that by then, Britain's construction in India will be in vain and will only help others to make wedding clothes." Upon hearing this, William I and Bismarck's faces changed drastically. They couldn't help but look at Stephen. Stephen is the director of the Strategic Research Institute of the University of Berlin, but he is also the chief think tank leader of the think tank of two Prussian kings, including William I. Prussia's rise in recent years. In addition to the contributions of the king and the cabinet government, the participation of this organization is absolutely indispensable. Although Bismarck is conceited, he is also ashamed of his professional political and diplomatic skills. He even discusses with Stephen from time to time. This man, who is loyal to the royal family, is one of William I's biggest trump cards to control Prussia. Many people think that Bismarck is all-powerful, but do you think William I has no means of checks and balances? Period. So his opinions can definitely attract Bismarck's attention. William I was even more solemn about the opinions of Stephen, whom he regarded as his right-hand man. William I could not help but ask, "In this case, will Britain go to war with the Netherlands in the Pacific?" "That's not necessarily the case." Stephen shook his head. "I'm afraid that the many organizations that the Netherlands is currently creating are meant to put shackles on Britain." "Put shackles on Britain?" Bismarck asked hurriedly. "You mean the Netherlands has already predicted that Britain will rebound, so the various new organizations currently being established are all used to deal with Britain, and even to form cliques in order to suppress Britain?" "Not bad," Stephen said. "If the Netherlands doesn't do this, then the Netherlands will face Britain alone. You must know that since ancient times, the second most powerful country that challenges the first most powerful country has always had to face the threat of war from the first most powerful country." "The second most powerful country? No way, the Netherlands is far from being called one at the moment." William I disagreed with the Netherlands' claim of being the second most powerful country. "It's the second most powerful naval country," Bismarck said, looking at Stephen. "Has Britain noticed?" Stephen nodded. Bismarck asked, "But Britain now wants to pull France to eliminate the threat first?" "But it doesn't look like that." "That's because Britain has not made up its mind to go it alone." Stephen praised. "Britain is afraid that after it goes it alone with the Netherlands, France and Prussia will benefit from it. So pulling France in is on the one hand to reduce its own losses, and on the other hand to tie up old rivals together to consume future enemies and prevent old rivals from taking advantage of the opportunity to grow stronger." Stephen's words made people's eyes light up. As expected of a major in strategic research, his speech was down-to-earth and thorough. Bismarck was even more ashamed of himself. However, Bismarck quickly recovered and said, "If I were the Netherlands, I would also win over various countries to help overcome the difficulties. According to the current pace of the Netherlands, I think the Netherlands will not expand its alliance system rapidly in the future. On the contrary, they will further solidify the existing organizational alliance system." William I moved slightly. Stephen looked up and said with a smile, "That's right, but it depends on whether Britain will let the Netherlands consolidate its alliance system easily." "Where will Britain start?" This time, the question was asked to William I. William I looked energetic and did not look like he was over 70 years old. Stephen stood up and walked to the rough map on the wall. He pointed to a place and said, "If my guess is correct, he will start his attack on the Netherlands from here." William I's eyes narrowed, and his eyes showed surprise. Bismarck was also very surprised, and looked at Stephen with William I. It turns out that Britain would choose it. Stephen: yes, Britain once forced the Netherlands to cede a lot of territory there. Not long ago, it was said that Britain and the Netherlands almost caused a military escalation in the area for the waterway. The two countries are currently negotiating on this, but there seems to be no result yet. Bismarck did not relax at all, and said, I think what Mr. Stephen is interested in should be the geographical location there. There is a dispute among three countries over one waterway. It seems that Britain has made a good calculation. Stephen smiled. Of course, there are no stupid people in London, at least not since the 19th century. This is correct. The British are unwilling to suffer losses. British Empire, London, inside 10 Downing Street. Disraeli only had one guest now, and that was the British Crown Prince Edward. Will the Prime Minister's actions trigger the first move between Britain and the Kingdom of Siam? Just now, Prime Minister Disraeli actually revealed to him that Britain was intervening in the dispute between the Kingdom of Siam and France, and even departed from the previous practice of supporting sanctions against France, which seemed to be against the norm. At first, Crown Prince Edward was still puzzled, but after being pointed out by others, he quickly associated Disraeli's intention. Sure enough, no one is a loser in becoming the Prime Minister. If we don't do this, it will be difficult for Britain to take action there. Don't worry, Your Highness, the Cabinet Government has made a comprehensive plan, and has even reported it to Her Majesty the Queen, and Her Majesty the Queen has no objection. Disraeli glanced at Edward, and showed a hint of sarcasm when he was not paying attention, but it quickly flashed away, and he regained his sincere eyes and said excitedly, the Netherlands is not yet a match for Britain. While the Netherlands has not successfully risen, I think William IV has jumped too high recently. It's time for someone to bring down his prestige. Crown Prince Edward clenched his hands, and veins popped out of his fists. Seeing this, Disraeli smiled secretly and said, William IV, who has fallen from the mortal world, can make the Netherlands return to the position he should be in, instead of the wrong position he is currently in. That's exactly right, Crown Prince Edward agreed. I've liked him for a long time, and it's better to embarrass him this time. Royal Palace of the Netherlands, Amsterdam, Kingdom of the Netherlands. According to the current intelligence, Britain is deliberately provoking in Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula. William IV looked at Foreign Minister Gisbert van, Prime Minister Thorbecke, and Dutch Chief of Staff Mark Rutte, and said with dissatisfaction, Britain has set up a small fleet in the Andaman Islands outside the Indian Ocean exit of the Strait of Malacca, and increased defense in ports in Kuala Lumpur and Penang on the Malay Peninsula. Obviously, they are on guard against the Netherlands. You know, to the north is the Songkhla port of the Kingdom of Siam, and to the west is the Medan port on the Dutch island of Sumatra. Chapter 456, Digging for the Resistance of Countries Dealing with Geopolitical Conflicts. The international order and power isolation are changing rapidly. Small countries need to deploy super-strong forces, imagine different scenarios, and formulate corresponding support plans. The current situation of the United Kingdom, France and Prussia seems to be united, and the Netherlands seems to be struggling with resistance with other countries, which reflects the escalation of geopolitical contradictions and indicates that its impact on the world may continue for a long time. It has been more than a year since the Netherlands and France competed for the Kingdom of Siam in diplomacy and economy in Europe. Even so, the parties involved in the alternative war between the Netherlands and France have no intention of stopping the dispute, let alone peace talks. What is worrying is that the dispute between the Netherlands and France has expanded to the entire International Court of Justice in The Hague, and now it seems to be spreading to countries such as Britain, Prussia and Russia. As a result, the whole of Europe and even both sides of the Atlantic are divided into two major factions. On the other hand, the conflict between the Netherlands and France has not only changed the geopolitical landscape of the group, but also spread to the Americas. The International Court of Justice in The Hague was originally just an organization related to the legal rules of various countries, but with the economic options of the French Empire, it has now begun to transform into a broader identity. At present, the Netherlands and Spain have been conducting military and economic cooperation in the Pacific Ocean, and there is an interaction with the United States of America. The Netherlands, as an intermediary, has successfully resolved the contradictions between Spain and the United States of America, making the relationship between the three countries more stable, and the relationship between Russia and the United States of America and the Netherlands is even stronger, which means that the Northwest Pacific is more worry-free for the Netherlands. With the establishment of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership led by the Netherlands, it covers member countries including the Netherlands, the United States of America, Spain, Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, etc., plus Russia, Sweden, Denmark, Argentina, and Venezuela, which were invited to participate in the meeting for the first time and confirmed as extra-regional partner countries. The International Hague Court Organization and the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Organization have increasingly similar perceptions of the threat posed by the British Empire. The International Hague Court Organization mentioned the British issue in an unprecedented way not long ago. Recently, Spain, a member of the International Hague Court, began to increase restrictions on France's railway transportation business to Spain and banned the shipment of sanctioned goods to the Iberian Peninsula, which even caused tensions between Spain and France. Spain is a necessary transit point for France to Portugal. When Spain had friendly relations with France, it was directly connected to Portugal. It was almost like France's backyard. However, as Spain developed a more independent foreign policy, the infiltration and counter-infiltration between the two countries sparks and splashed everywhere. In response, French Napoleon III even warned that Madrid's actions made France very sad and Paris would take very tough retaliatory measures. In response, Dutch Foreign Minister Hesbert van pointed out at the meeting of foreign ministers of member states extended from the International Hague Court Organization that the International Hague Court Organization is now a global organization. The Netherlands believes that a strong global organization should be able to prevent the member states from providing protection from attacks by other powerful countries. Hesbert van's speech was agreed by all member states, and the foreign ministers of various countries signed and took effect to establish the Hague Security Council Organization, referred to as the Hague Security Council Council. The organization mainly cooperates around the sovereignty and security of various countries and provides more mutual assistance in security cooperation. The establishment of this organization marks the official move of small and medium-sized countries to the security zone, which has a significant impact on the military and political structure of Europe and even the world. On December 20, 1868, Britain was strongly dissatisfied with the establishment of the Hague Security Council. Disraeli even criticized it as a serious provocation to Britain, and Britain would retain the right to retaliate. On the same day, the British Navy announced that it would send the Behe fleet from the Norwegian Sea to the Baltic Sea and Behe to the Mediterranean Sea for a series of naval exercises. Obviously, Britain's anger has expressed dissatisfaction. Paris also made the same move. The French Navy will conduct coordinated naval exercises when Britain arrives on the French coast. The two countries will conduct actual combat exercises with more than 20 warships in the Mediterranean. Napoleon III even said that France would stand with Britain and would make a strong counterattack against any move that challenges the international status of the two countries. France would not be easily picked off and become a threatened weak country. Berlin seems to be very quiet, but no one thinks that Prussia is an easy boss. With the successful integration of the German Confederation by Prussia, countries have begun to worry that Prussia is choosing the next target of attack. At present, the Netherlands seems to be the biggest suspect. The action was too big, and many people were very worried. Would the Hague Security Council be closed soon, or even forced to close by Britain and France just after its establishment? On December 25, 1868, the foreign ministers of various countries formally passed a proposal at the Hague Security Council, formally granting the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire the status of partner countries of the organization. Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke pointed out that the decision of the foreign ministers of the member states of the Hague Security Council sent a very strong signal to Britain and France, that is, most countries in the world support them, that is, support the desire of small and medium-sized countries to develop independently. Some European political commentators pointed out that for the newly established Hague Security Council, this move opened a new era of eastward expansion full of risks and a new era of sending invitations to major powers. Your Majesty, now that Britain, France and Prussia are increasingly tied together, countries are beginning to nail them together, which allows the Netherlands to have more time and energy to deal with its own problems. As our flanks, the Russian Empire, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire have formed a check and balance on these countries. In this way, the plan we have formulated to secure an environment for the Netherlands to settle down and develop is not as formal as it should be. Hespet van smiled proudly and said, "All countries think that the Netherlands is striving for the status of a great power that leads all countries, but they don't know that His Majesty actually values economic development the most. Sanctioning France makes it difficult for French crops to be circulated and sold within the member countries of the International Hague Court Organization. Instead, it allows the Netherlands to open up new crops in Queensland, Australia in the Far East, and squeeze out the French share for the Netherlands. Creating tensions between the International Hague Court and the United Kingdom has actually allowed our Dutch industrial products of similar quality and low price to gain a large share of the market competition with British industrial products. Compared with Prussia, we have gained more support from the Germanic Nordic people. Currently, among the Germanic people, the British Germanic people and the Prussian Germanic people are of different races. On the contrary, we are closer to Northern Europe. This will make it easier for the Netherlands to absorb talents from the Nordic Danes and Swedes in the future." Chapter 457 Britain's nerves may be tense again. 1868, a summit at the foreign ministerial level of Britain, France and Prussia was held in Paris. British Foreign Secretary Bertrand Russell criticized the Netherlands for seeking to expand the military alliance. Russell said that the sanctions on France and the isolation of the economies of Britain, France and Prussia caused widespread concern in the international community that the world would inevitably split into isolated regions. He warned that if the Netherlands is obsessed with the power status of dominating international organizations, expanding military alliances, and preparing to sacrifice the security and economic interests of Britain, France and Prussia in order to develop itself, it will inevitably be counterattacked by the three countries. I hope the Netherlands can understand the serious dissatisfaction of the three countries, which may put the Netherlands in a security and economic dilemma. Whether economically or militarily, the Netherlands is currently unable to fight against one of the three major powers in Europe alone. Krim, director and chief researcher of the world-renowned Australia Institute, told the European Times. The members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague support the Netherlands. But even so, it is still a bit difficult, so the Netherlands must get other countries in Europe and even the world involved to jointly restrain the barbaric actions of France, Britain and Prussia, restrain them, and prevent them from annexing or invading other countries. Although the Netherlands strongly denied the idea of brewing the Hague Security Council organization, which was established to fight against Britain, France and Prussia, the Torbeck government has strengthened its partnership with the member states of the organization and the Russian Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Ottoman Empire, on the one hand to prevent the strong claims of Britain, France and Prussia against the Netherlands, and on the other hand to expand the contradictions between the three countries and other countries. With the strength of Britain and France and the precedent of Prussia's annexation of other countries, more and more countries are worried that Berlin, London and Paris may consider attacking the member states of the organization in the next few years, and eventually trigger a war in Europe and even more widely. The Netherlands has been operating various alliances in Europe for more than a decade. Although countries seem to have no intention of choosing sides, they are actually more willing to stand on the side of the Netherlands because the Netherlands is easier to deal with, while Britain, France and Prussia like to control others. Of course, Britain and France, who have been fighting for hegemony for hundreds of years, are still wary of each other, so neither of them will deal with the Netherlands wholeheartedly. Everyone thinks that we are currently fighting with the Rothschild family in North American financial capital. In fact, how could they know that we have already completed a secret agreement with the Rothschild family? As the foreign minister of the Netherlands, Hespet van has almost access to William IV's overall plan. In today's world, when everyone thinks that the Dutch in the United States are peaking with the Rothschild family, who knows that it turns out that all this is just a plan designed by William IV. William IV couldn't help but sigh that it is still useful to have the benefit of being familiar with foreign history. In the previous life, the Russian-Ukrainian war pushed up global energy and food prices and exacerbated the global inflation problem. Hespet van Deo, under our deliberate guidance, the escalation of strategic competition between the International Hague Court Organization and countries such as France and Britain Prussia has pushed the world into a polarized pattern, which has increased the pressure on small countries to choose sides. Of course, they are basically afraid of being annexed and have now turned to us. These problems are unlikely to be resolved in the short term, and under the influence of each other, unpredictable consequences may eventually occur. One of the affected was the global food supply. Since the century-long disaster of the Irish crop failure at the beginning of this century, early 19th century, which killed 1 million Irish people, extreme climate has affected the production of crops around the world. Sanctions on the French economic war and the blockade of French crops have further exacerbated the shortage of food, which has caused food prices in various countries to soar. These restrictions have caused a brief panic, prompting buyers to stockpile goods, further pushing up prices. According to statistics, in order to ensure domestic needs, more than 10 countries of the International Hague Court Organization have changed their agricultural product import channels from France to the Netherlands. This has allowed the Netherlands to almost monopolize the sale of food in various countries. Currently, only Argentina and the United States can compete with us in the organization. Secondly, there is the issue of energy supply. Currently, all countries are rapidly developing their industrial economies. The restrictions on Britain, France, and Prussia and the counter-restrictions of Britain, France, and Prussia have led to tight supply of coal and steel prices in various countries, especially in small European countries. Although the Russian Empire is vast and rich in resources, its coal production is very small. Therefore, Dutch coal mines have become a stable source for the Russians, and South America is also the main customer of Australian coal mines. This has further prompted the Dutch mining industry to enter a prosperous stage. Currently, mineral development in the Far East has reached a blowout level, increasing the economic competitiveness of the entire Netherlands. Correspondingly, Britain, France, and Prussia have fallen into economic growth stagnation due to the loss of markets and resource sources, which has also relatively weakened the economic potential of these three countries. At this point, Gijsbert van showed a happy look on his face and said, "Your Majesty's good chess game has caused the world's geopolitical conflicts to escalate, leading to a highly uncertain global environment, and causing bottlenecks in the traditional resource sources and market supply chains of Britain, France and Prussia. They cannot sell goods and suffer from economic inflation. Our allies' partner countries have become long-term structural problems for each country because of food and energy supply shortages and inflation. Partner countries and allies are now more dependent on the Netherlands, but they are wary and contemptuous of Britain, France, Prussia and other countries." It must be said that Gijsbert van's admiration for William IV has reached an extreme. With a deeper understanding, he has found that he actually likes this way of manipulating and playing with various countries. Thorbecke deeply agrees with Gijsbert van's views. With the past few years of getting along, Thorbecke has been extremely certain that William IV is the master of the Netherlands revival. He will even make the Netherlands an unprecedentedly prosperous country. This was unthinkable before, but now it seems that everything is moving forward steadily. Everything is so real, visible and tangible. The international order and power structure are changing rapidly. It is necessary for small countries to deploy super-strong forces at this time, imagine different backgrounds, and formulate corresponding response plans. Thinking of this, he looked at William IV and pointed out, "Your Majesty, Britain has deliberately provoked again and again in the Strait of Malacca on the edge of Sumatra. I think we might as well give them an unforgettable memory." Although various countries are flustered by the strength of Britain, France and Prussia, attending the Hague Security Council to maintain a balance in relations with Britain, France and Prussia, these countries are still one of the most powerful countries in Europe and even the world, and the prestige remains. The three countries use military and influence to cause great pain to various countries in geopolitical disputes. However, since they have become members of the Hague Security Council, they obviously understand that it is more beneficial for them to try to keep them closer to the Hague Security Council. Chapter 458, Should the Kingdom of Siam and France call a truce? Neither the Netherlands' allies and security partners in Europe believe that Prussia's rise is peaceful. In recent years, Berlin has increased its military activities in the Baltic and Atlantic, stepped up its territorial claims in disputed areas with Denmark on the North Sea coast of the Baltic Sea outlet, and intensified the sailing of warships near the Norwegian Sea of Sweden. The bloodiest war conflict in the German Confederation in hundreds of years broke out between Prussia and Austria-Hungary. If Prussia tries to invade Denmark again, I don't think other European countries will sit idly by. I think the possibility that Britain will accept it is extremely low. They may consider creating a Holy Four alliance similar to the one they used against Napoleon I, but Prussia will change it to the French Empire. William IV said secretly, "No one will join at this stage, and even if it is created in some way, it will not work." Since Napoleon I ordered the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam, France has been accusing the International Court of Justice of The Hague of trying to provoke the French Empire, and did not name the Netherlands in seeking to establish something similar to the Holy Alliance on the European continent, but it is lighter in weight than the original Holy Alliance. This week, countries from the alliance gathered in Copenhagen, Denmark, under the name of celebrating the wedding of the Danish crown prince, but in fact they were plotting to seek renewal of sanctions against France. Even many Spanish politicians have said that if France does not take good care of Spain's interests, then the connection with the International Court of Justice of The Hague may protect Spain's interests in the issue. With the beginning of the seemingly interactive cooperation between France and Britain in the Far East, the Spanish government, which owns the colony of the Philippines in the Far East, has promised to upgrade Spain's military power, including increasing Spain's defense spending to a higher level of more than 10%. At the same time, Spain is also negotiating with the Netherlands Far East Arms Company. Spain intends to order 5 steam battleships from this second-ranked arms company in the Netherlands, 3 of which will be deployed in Spain, and the remaining 2, one will be deployed in the Philippines and the other will be deployed in Cuba. Brown, chief researcher and director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, the most famous think tank in the Netherlands, talked about the attention of the Netherlands-led International Court of Justice in The Hague to France and the attention of the newly established Hague Security Council to Britain. He said that the new tension would definitely make Britain, France and Prussia feel uneasy and feel betrayed and threatened. Even King Carl XV of Sweden said in an interview with the Australian Times that France's invasion of the Siamese Palace and Prussia's annexation of the entire German Confederation made other countries feel threatened, and also brought everyone together to unite and help each other, whether they are members of the Hague Security Council or members of the International Hague Court of Justice, or non-member states such as the Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the Ottoman Empire. On December 25, 1868, when the Kingdom of Siam was continued to be invaded by France, the first Director General of the International Red Cross, El Barati, warned yesterday that the war in the Far East had caused sanctions and counter-sanctions among Western countries, which had a very serious and intensifying impact on global food security, energy and international capital. The barriers set up by European countries led to unprecedented famine and poverty on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, triggering social and economic unrest in various countries, and it is estimated that more than 50 million people were affected. He believed that the only way to solve the problem was for the French Empire to stop its aggression against the Kingdom of Siam. However, Prime Minister Olivier of the French Empire accused Barati is just a puppet of the Netherlands. The International Red Cross is just a tool for the Netherlands to win over the hearts and minds of the people. Now it has become a tool to accuse opponents. France will soon review whether the organization in Paris and the whole of France has done anything that violates the national interests of France. As the two accused each other, more and more signs showed that the war might be protracted and far-reaching. On December 26, 1868, Napoleon III stated in Paris that he would not invalidate the results of the soldiers' efforts, and he would let France take root there. King Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam also reiterated the conditions for the Kingdom of Siam to cease fire on December 26, recapture all territories seized by the French Empire, restore territorial integrity, and ensure that the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Siam is not violated by France. This means that both France and Siam have yet to accept the lack of a ceasefire consensus. After the French Empire failed in its attack on the Cambodian region of the Kingdom of Siam in the west, it has narrowed its strategic focus to occupying the central and eastern parts of Cambodia, and has even divided 2 provinces there for the control of the French Empire's South Vietnam governor's office. The two armies have recently engaged in fierce exchanges of fire on multiple fronts in central Cambodia, repeatedly seizing positions. Most European military analysts believe that the war in the Far East has made the entire West wait and see, and it seems that France's war with the Kingdom of Siam is turning into a war of attrition, which may continue for months or even years. Paris still insists on aggression only because the interests of the French Empire in the Far East have been damaged. At present, France has only mobilized less than 1/3 of its troops to participate in the war in the Far East, and only by declaring a state of war can Napoleon III implement a national mobilization. The Kingdom of Siam has already mobilized. It has a vast territory and has been living with a steady stream of weapons and military aid from all European countries outside the French Empire, including the United Kingdom, which recently announced its approach to France. Although it takes some time for the Kingdom of Siam to train new soldiers and learn to operate new Western weapons before it can form a fighting force. At present, both sides have the potential to prolong the war. Once the Kingdom of Siam completes its preparations and begins a strategic counterattack, the war may escalate further. In addition to the sanctions imposed by various countries on France, which have pushed up global energy prices and inflationary pressures, the current sluggish sales of industrial products in Britain and Prussia have also led to a drop in prices of industrial products, and the inability to effectively reduce inventory has exacerbated the loss of industrial jobs in Britain, France and Prussia, exacerbating the sharp decline in employment in these three countries. It has caused a panic in the three countries. The three countries had no money to buy food, which also led to a large amount of wheat and grain being unsaleable in American warehouses. They were unwilling to promote sales at low prices, which exacerbated the food shortage in European countries such as Britain, France and Prussia. The country most affected was Prussia. On December 25, William I and Bismarck even commissioned King Emmanuel II of Italy to go to Amsterdam to meet Thorbecke and visit William IV as lobbyists, calling on the Netherlands to assist France and the Kingdom of Siam in a ceasefire and release sufficient grain stocks for trade. The war not only interrupted the friendly relations between France and its European neighbors, pushed up grain prices, but also affected the industrial product markets of Britain, France and Prussia, making them unstable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459. What was the dream of the Jews in the 19th century? The International Labour Confederation, also known as the International Labour Union, has a Dutchman named Henry Darley as its general director. He warned that if the food shortage this year continues to worsen due to the war, it will burn into labor-intensive jobs such as industry in the future. He said that if the war continues, there will be a shortage of food next year, and even if you have money, you may not be able to buy enough food. Poor countries will be the first to suffer from severe famine and epidemics. International labor employment may deteriorate seriously next year, and the world may enter a period after 1848, when a large-scale workers' strike will occur again. The general director therefore called on France and the Kingdom of Siam to cease fire and asked other countries to work together to stop them from continuing the war. Because, at this time, everyone is on the same boat. If there is a hole, everyone will sink to the bottom of the sea. He reminded, the European Revolution in 1848 led to the political collapse of many European countries with a multi-domino effect. It started with rising consumer prices, reduced workers' income, and rising inflation, which in turn suppressed the value of income, and eventually triggered civil unrest. The speech of Henry Darley, Secretary General of the International Labour Union, was published in full in the world's most influential Luxembourg European Times. Once published, it was approved by the working class and low-income groups around the world. On this basis, the poor in the bottom of society tried to pressure governments to be responsible for their low income. Under the circumstances of helplessness of various governments, the embassies of various countries in Paris began to send appointments to the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister's office. Obviously, they were all under pressure from their own governments to transfer the pressure to Paris. At this time, even London, which had just approached France, was no exception. Obviously, although no one in Europe would use this internet phrase in this era, the truth is the same, and it is even more unscrupulous in Europe in this era. On December 28, 1868, 100,000 workers in London took to the streets to demand that the British government stop the rise in food prices in Britain. Prime Minister Disraeli hurriedly agreed to the request. The next day, British Foreign Secretary Russell visited Amsterdam, the Netherlands again to discuss the establishment of negotiations to ensure that European food is not affected. However, in the end, the Netherlands seemed to have many concerns and did not receive much response. Russell then visited Paris to discuss the conditions for an armistice. Because France was worried that its interests in the Kingdom of Siam would be damaged there, Paris was unwilling to compromise easily. However, Paris also tried to use Britain as a breakthrough in exchange for the Netherlands and other Hague International Court organizations to unlock sanctions against France, but with Britain's representativeness questioned, the probability of the two sides reaching an agreement was very small, so Britain's food shortage crisis remained unsolved. The sanctions imposed by the International Court of Justice in The Hague on France and the warnings to capital from various countries to stay away from French local investment have accelerated the formation of geopolitical opposition camps. The fact that Britain and Prussia seemed to be partial to France made all countries dissatisfied. France accused the actions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, represented by the Netherlands, as provocative acts. Britain also seemed to support this statement, and Prussia acquiesced. Similar confrontations are bound to paralyze the tacit and peaceful operation that has always existed in Europe, making it difficult to solve problems in more regions. The long-delayed Far East War will therefore have a profound impact on the world. In the short term, the imbalance between global industrial and food supply and demand has worsened the supply and demand balance and contributed to inflation, slowing down the economic development of Britain, France, Prussia and many other countries. In the medium term, as the war intensifies and hits the French Empire in the heart of Europe, it will cause fragmentation and isolation in Europe, and low-income countries will face humanitarian crises such as famine. The social and political unrest caused by this will also turn into regional conflicts and give rise to a new wave of refugees. In the long run, the war will not only reverse the industrialization process of Europe, which was originally determined to be the industrial leader of Britain, but also the rise of Prussia and the United States. It seems that the Netherlands has become a variable, Prussia seems to be downgraded, and France is even behind the industrialized countries such as Britain, the Netherlands, the United States, and Prussia. This will also intensify the competitiveness competition among several countries in the future industrialization development, rewrite the existing geopolitical and economic structure, and the post-industrial revolution seems to have begun to evolve. It is not clear whether the original peace dividend will be exhausted at this point. In short, the world is about to enter a troubled autumn. Paris, Rothschild family. Sir James, as a great capitalist and financier, you should understand that whoever wins the hearts of the people wins the world, whoever wins public opinion wins the world. The Netherlands currently controls many major media in the world. If the Kingdom of the Netherlands wants, tomorrow all countries will see that Jefferson Breen, the head of the Dutch embassy in France, met with the only surviving second generation of the Rothschild family last night. The two of them had a secret meeting in cooperation in Sir James's private villa for more than 3 hours. I think people all over the world will be surprised tomorrow. I don't know about other places, but Paris will be in an uproar. His Majesty the Emperor Napoleon III of your country may be dissatisfied with this. What do you think? Jefferson Breen, the Dutch ambassador to the French Empire, was born in 1808. He is currently the oldest Dutch official abroad. He has been stationed in France for more than 20 years. He has been here since the former King of the Netherlands, current King of Greece, William II just ascended the throne. He is considered a veteran of 2 dynasties. Many Dutch diplomats are his students. The most famous one is the current Dutch Foreign Minister Hubert van, who was previously the Dutch Chancellor and Minister to France. He was brought up by him. Therefore, Jefferson Breen has a wide network of contacts. Of course, he is also known as the diplomatic fox in the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which means that he is very cunning. James Rothschild looked at the old guy in front of him with some fear. He had a smiling face, but his eyes were full of passion. This old guy has been in the Dutch embassy in France for decades. He can be called an evergreen in the Dutch diplomatic world. He is unshakable and naturally has his own wisdom. This time, he would not be idle. As expected, he was a little curious, and as soon as he met the other party, he was verbally attacked in a series of offensive preludes. The current top figures in the Dutch newspaper industry all understand the strength of Dutch public opinion, especially in the United States, which are cited as classics by the ideologists. I agree with what Mr. Ambassador said, but the Netherlands seems to be a little unharmonious with the Rothschild family at present. It seems a bit inappropriate for you to visit rashly like this. James continued to ask sharply, what's more, Our Majesty Napoleon III is also very anti-Dutch at present. As you said just now, if people see that our meeting is exposed, it seems that the safety of the Dutch embassy needs to be more careful. Jefferson Breen laughed, looked at James Rothschild, and revealed a shocking inside story. Don't you know that Her Majesty has agreed to your nephew in the UK, and the dream of the Netherlands to help the Jews? What? James Rothschild stood up subconsciously, and then realized the current situation. However, he stared at Jefferson Breen without caring, and asked word by word, really? Chapter 460, Behind the Scenes Deal in Paris. Looking at James, the only second-generation survivor of the Rothschild family, the helmsman of European finance, and Rothschild's expression that did not seem fake, Jefferson Breen, the Dutch ambassador to France, nodded and said, The Kingdom of the Netherlands is willing to support you Jews to restore your country, but just like a deal, we in the Netherlands think it should be fairer. James Rothschild's temper calmed down at this time, staring and said, since the Netherlands promised my British nephew Lionel to help the Netherlands restore its country, then the deal must have already begun, right? Puff. Jefferson Breen saw James looking at him with dissatisfaction. It was obvious that his laughter just now was so ungentlemanly, but he didn't seem to notice. Mr. James, what you said is wrong. Seeing that James' dissatisfaction was getting stronger, he immediately smiled and said, Mr. Lionel promised to cooperate with the Kingdom of the Netherlands on the issue of the United States of America. James frowned, feeling a little dissatisfied. Why didn't Lionel inform him? But with Lionel's character, it shouldn't be. So he looked up at Jefferson Breen in question. The latter laughed. It's limited to the United States. We in the Netherlands agree and will agree to the restoration of the Jewish state. Of course, the follow-up is not involved. The shrewd James understood instantly that this man was here to help the restoration of the Jewish state on behalf of the Dutch government. However, it seems that this help is completed in stages. He just got a guarantee from his nephew Lionel in London, England, that the rights and interests of the Dutch in the United States would not be harmed. Now he is trying to attract him in France with other conditions. After figuring this out, he couldn't help but admire it. People in finance are all smart people. Obviously, James has figured out the context of the Dutch government. What kind of help can the Netherlands provide us? After trading with my nephew, they actually came to me. I think the conditions should be attractive enough to me. It means that if the conditions are not attractive enough, then Jefferson Breen should not mention it. This is a disguised way to strive for more good conditions. The old fox Jefferson naturally understood the meaning of this sentence. He is worthy of being the financial emperor of France. Putting away the smiling expression on his face, Jefferson Breen said seriously, the Netherlands is willing to provide the Jews with territory for restoration of their nation. Bang! James was stunned. The teacup he had just picked up and drank from, but before he put it on the table, he accidentally lost his balance and the lid of the teacup fell to the ground. His son Edmund Rothschild, who was waiting outside, came in and prepared to clean it up, but was stopped by James. James left his son Edmund, who was about to leave, and said to Jefferson Breen, the Netherlands is very enthusiastic about the restoration of the Jewish nation. They actually gave us such a big pie, but I don't know if it's delicious. Help restore the nation? Edmund's whole body shook, and he looked at his father in disbelief. After getting a nod, he turned to the Dutch ambassador to France next to him. Jefferson Breen saw all this and understood that James was letting his son come to exercise. Perhaps, the son of the Rothschild family in the UK also gave the man in front of him the idea of letting his son start doing things, but it's okay. Dealing with James, an old fox, is always worse than dealing with the younger third generation of the Rothschild family. Although he knew that no one in the Rothschild family would be simple. You can only know if it tastes good after trying it. Sir James, how about it? Are you willing to cooperate with our Kingdom of the Netherlands? What do we need to pay? It was Edmund who spoke. Obviously, in a short time, he had been instructed. Seeing that James didn't put it right, Jefferson said, the Netherlands needs the financial currency and national debt data of the French Empire. Impossible. The royal family of Paris and the French government will definitely be furious when they know it. Edmund seemed to be very scared and shocked, looking at Jefferson Breen. The latter looked at Edmund and laughed strangely. I think France will be very angry and shocked if it knows that the Rothschild family wants to support the restoration of the Jewish state. Edmund was about to continue, but saw that James seemed to have something to say, so he swallowed the words that were about to come to his mouth. Jefferson naturally saw it, so he smiled and waited for James. James looked at Jefferson Breen deeply. We can agree to your request, but what can we get? Don't talk about empty things. I need something tangible. Jefferson Breen seemed to have made a major decision. He raised his head and said, the Netherlands is willing to help the Jews in establishing a country. Establishing a country is not restoring a country. James pointed out the doubts. Jefferson Breen smiled bitterly and said, the Ottoman Empire is too powerful. It is naturally difficult for the Netherlands to support this approach at present. Therefore, it is difficult for the Jews to restore their country in Jerusalem, at least not for now. Seeing the disappointment of the father and son in front of him, Jefferson said, however, we can choose to establish a country somewhere else. It is better to have something than nothing. Edmund asked on behalf of his father, I don't know where the ambassador is referring to. Jefferson Brand suddenly opened a simple global map, pointed to a place, and said, "The Netherlands will naturally not wrong to help our partners and even allies. Here, I think it is more suitable for survival than the Arabian Peninsula if it is well developed." James and Edmund looked at Jefferson Brand in shock. "Ambassador, you are kidding. That place doesn't seem to be Dutch territory." Jefferson smiled and said, "It is not Dutch territory at the moment, but it doesn't mean it won't be in the future. We are sincere enough, but I don't know how Sir James will deal with this." James looked calm, but he was actually calculating quickly. Finally, he gritted his teeth and proposed a new condition: "I can agree, but I need an accurate time. When will the Netherlands get it and when will it belong to us?" "Within 5 years," Jefferson Brand answered with certainty. James felt that the time was a bit long, and a long time meant instability. He looked at Jefferson Brand with dissatisfaction. The latter shrugged and said, "The international situation has changed suddenly, and the Netherlands needs to find an opportunity. The current strength of the Netherlands is that it will face resistance after taking it. Therefore, in order to be safe, we must have a certain amount of time to develop and prepare. This period of time is exactly where we need your family to help. If the Rothschild family can help the Netherlands develop, the Netherlands will gain greater advantages in the world economy and military. This is the best shortcut that the Netherlands can find in the world at present." His Majesty William IV was indeed right, and the Rothschild family was indeed moved. Looking at the hesitation of the two fathers and sons in front of him, Jefferson Brand already knew that this mission was only one step away from completion. James finally made up his mind, and his determination made Jefferson Brand happy. "It's done." But James' words surprised him. James teased, "Okay, but I need the Dutch government and William IV to guarantee that within 20 years after the establishment of the Jewish state, this new country will become a country protected by the Netherlands. If you agree, then the ambassador's mission will be completed." This. Jefferson Brand pretended to hesitate, and finally said nervously, "Please wait a few days. I will pass this request back to Amsterdam and let Her Majesty and Prime Minister Thorbecke give you an answer. But for the sake of safety, if you don't object, I suggest that you give us the data of European countries. It's better, you know, this will make Our Majesty and others feel the sincerity of the Rothschild family." James stopped Edmund and promised, "I can't do anything about London, England, but I can make the decision about Naples, Italy, Paris, Vienna and Frankfurt." Jefferson Brand said with a look of regret, "Okay, you two wait for good news." Chapter 461, The Old Storm in European Politics is Stirring Up. 1868, the political arena of many European countries was turbulent, and several regimes changed or were turbulent, which may have a profound impact on the politics, economy and security of the region, and needs to be closely watched. In March of the first half of the year, after years of hostility between the Spanish Prime Minister and Queen Isabel II of Spain, Isabel II and the current Minister of Defense Ramon Narvaez were ousted in March 1868. The latter was supported by the Queen and elected as the new Spanish Prime Minister. Spain has since changed from an alliance with France to an anti-France. Spain and France entered a diplomatic turmoil in March. Portugal obviously continued to remain neutral and did not help either side. The Iberian Peninsula has since ended the tradition of alliances among Catholic League countries. Spain seems to be more willing to maintain friendly relations with a Nordic ally, the Netherlands, in the north, and to restrict France from the north and the south. Many people speculate that it is because Isabel II was stimulated by the same female king, Queen Victoria, so she was unwilling to let Spain, once the strongest country in Europe, be only a small follower of the French Empire, but wanted to use this opportunity to revive the great Spanish Empire. The Netherlands saw this point and successfully provoked the relationship between Spain and France, making it seem that France's rear base for hundreds of years would never disappear. In April of the same year, Prussian Secretary of State Seward was dismissed by Lincoln, and the Prussians were unhappy, so the Prussians assassinated President Lincoln of the United States of America and succeeded, causing a global sensation. Dutch Vice President Andrew Johnson inherited the presidency. At the same time, Prussians became the target of suppression in the political arena of the United States of America, and the Irish turned to the Dutch. From the Dutch becoming the most powerful single ethnic group in the United States of America, and the relationship between the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the United States of America was exposed, the initial dissatisfaction. The Dutch used the powerful capital in their hands to even resist the invasion of the Rothschild family, the strongest capital family in Britain and Europe, but instead achieved the reputation of the Dutch. In the end, Under the guidance of the powerful media, the Dutch became a veritable elite ethnic group in the United States of America. Almost all walks of life in the United States of America are covered, and the influence is unprecedented. In May, Andrew Johnson pushed various legislations in the Senate and House of Representatives in order to consolidate his power. However, although many people of other ethnic groups in the United States did not agree, they were eventually suppressed due to Andrew Johnson's strength. This is the current political reality of the United States of America. In July, in South America, the Brazilian Empire elected a new prime minister. Brazilian Emperor Pedro I won over Argentina to fight against Paraguay in the Uruguayan War, which enabled Brazil to accelerate the development of its military industry and bring valuable combat experience in the war, and also enabled the Brazilian army to modernize. The war also strengthened the construction of road networks and the development of several industries, and also allowed Brazil to begin to move towards economic modernization in the 19th century. However, due to the continuous fighting in recent years, Brazilian people were boiling with resentment, causing Pedro I to lose the support of the people a few years ago. As a result of public discontent, the cabinet prime minister supported by Pedro I was eliminated by voters in the general election when he wanted to be re-elected, while General Fonseca, who won a great victory in the war, was recognized. Since Fonseca had always opposed Pedro I's slave policy, he supported the abolition movement. In the end, General Fonseca was pushed to the throne of Prime Minister of the Brazilian Empire by voters. As a result, Brazil saw a confrontation between the cabinet government led by the Prime Minister and the royal family of Pedro I. This made the Kingdom of Portugal, which has always been known as the suzerain of Brazil, very confused. Since the Brazilian Empire is the most powerful country in South America, many people predict that South America will enter an era of chaos from now on. In August, the Fonseca government of the South American country of Brazil declared a state of emergency in the country, and 2 days later announced a nationwide curfew. However, the conflict between government supporters and royal supporters in the capital Rio de Janeiro continued to escalate. Pedro I, the emperor of the Brazilian Empire, and Prime Minister Fonseca of the cabinet government seemed to be the objects of support of the two factions. The two had their own supporters in the Senate and the House of Representatives of Brazil, and they were attacking each other. Pedro I and Prime Minister Fonseca, who had real power, began to shirk responsibility on this ground. However, the two seemed to have a tacit understanding and did not let things develop to an unmanageable point. In the same month, Argentine voters with a population of 7 million elected the president and vice president. Sure enough, the always strong Mitre was elected. The Mitre family continued to exist as the first family in Argentine politics. At the same time, in October, the former United States, now the Southern government of the Confederate States of America, President Davis launched his supporter, General Robert Lee, the commander-in-chief of the Confederate Army, the highest-ranking military official, to run for election. His opponent was Vice President Alexander Stephens. In the end, Robert Lee was elected as the new President of the Confederate States of America, becoming the second President of the Confederate States of America, which had 13 states of the original United States, after Davis became independent. However, because the international status of the country is currently recognized by all countries in the world, the number of countries that congratulated it is so small that it can be counted on one hand. William IV recalled what happened in 1868 in the Dutch royal palace, and once again lamented that if the most eye-catching thing in 1868 was the French invasion of the Kingdom of Siam in the Far East and Southeast Asia, it was not the French invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. The war between the two countries in the Far East made everyone know that it was difficult to end the war quickly. The two countries are constantly looking for allies to support themselves, and European countries have even carried out political thinking for this purpose. Although the forms and backgrounds are different, in terms of the political development process alone, it does not seem to represent the future direction of progress, but rather it is very similar to the old and backward political events that took place in Europe in the 18th century. First, there are still a few powerful families and interest groups that dominate the political forces. No matter how the situation changes, those families will eventually dominate the Li Changsheng regime. In later Asia, a series of such families or groups can be listed. Although they all have their own modern democratic election models and systems, they have not grasped the true meaning of democratic elections. Slogans are shouted, but what they do is something else. Not only now, but even in the future of Europe and Asia in the 21st century, Political confrontation and retaliation are very common. Once some leaders or leadership groups step down, they will immediately face severe political liquidation actions. The newly elected political groups want to suppress their opponents as much as possible when they have supreme power, and it is best to prevent the other party from having a chance to rise again. This approach is undoubtedly the routine of the royal court struggle before the 19th century. The ancient saying of "if you don't cut the grass at the root, it will grow again in the spring breeze" is followed very strictly against the enemy. I am afraid that it will only intensify the confrontation and conflict between different groups and make political reconciliation far away. William IV thought about this and thought, perhaps the Netherlands can start from this aspect and conduct more internal intervention in European countries to obtain a more favorable environment for the Netherlands. Chapter 462 Airship over Australia. The political transition in Europe often takes place in a fragile peace, with memory-forming demonstrations and protests, and bloody struggles are also common. In fact, there are not many civil wars in the entire West, but they are not rare. For example, the most are in the Americas. In the Brazilian Empire, Prime Minister Fonseca and Pedro II's supporters took to the streets and vowed to help Fonseca retain power, which made Pedro II's supporters compete head-on. In the Confederate States of America, which split from the United States, Vice President Alexander Stephens and the new President Robert Lee fought to the death for power. The scene was no less powerful than President Lincoln, Secretary of State Seward, and Vice President, now President, Andrew Johnson in the Confederate States of America in the North. Even President Robert Lee, who was born as a general, issued a fire order against those stubborn demonstrators who supported Alexander Stephens, almost making people feel that the Confederate States of America was going to have a civil war again. Even the President Andrew's government in the North extended a hand of friendship to both sides, obviously trying to take advantage of the situation. This has caused many European countries to prepare for the Civil War in North America, which has just been quiet for about a year. The most troublesome are Britain, France and Spain. At present, the three countries have the greatest influence in the United States. The English, French and Spanish all have considerable influence. According to William IV, the British currently support President Robert Lee and former President Davis, while the French support Vice President Alexander Stephens. The Spanish are changing their stance and taking a neutral position. At present, the national environment of the Netherlands is not bad, but the internal political process of the Netherlands' external allies is often disturbed by external factors. Often, the tree wants to be quiet but the wind does not stop, and even many countries are unintentionally tied to the competition chariot of the great powers and cannot extricate themselves. Just a few years ago, Sweden and Norway almost shouted that they wanted independence and rights because of Britain's intervention. Britain's role has always been to establish a role that weakens the strength of others. William IV remembers this very clearly. Among the current allies of the Netherlands, the one that William IV is most worried about is not the United States of America, but Argentina in South America. At present, Argentina is willing to establish an alliance with the Netherlands, mainly to rely on the economic strength of the Netherlands to gain strength to fight against the strong enemy Brazil in the north. The Argentines know that Britain, France and other countries are unreliable, and the hatred between the Netherlands and Portugal, Brazil's European backer, makes Argentina think that there is an opportunity to take advantage of it. They want to use the idea of the Netherlands to gain a foothold in southern South America to complete Argentina's transformation from a South American agricultural power to an industrial country that can rival Brazil. The industrial technology of the Netherlands is exactly what Argentina lacks. It is precisely because of Argentina's leaving the door that when Argentina and the Netherlands are getting closer and closer, other countries such as Britain and France have never said it explicitly, but the various factions in Argentina have to carefully weigh between the Netherlands and Britain, France and other countries, and cannot fully control their internal affairs. Although Mitre is strong, he is not willing to offend Britain too much. After all, Britain's colony South Africa is across the Atlantic Ocean from Argentina, and Britain's colony New Zealand is west of Argentina in the Pacific Ocean. In addition, Chile in the west of Argentina is Britain's ally. Britain's navy is the best in the world. After weighing its own strength, Argentina will naturally choose to retreat. In fact, the same is true for other countries. In South America, although these phenomena are not enough to summarize the overall picture of South American politics, nor can they deny the achievements of South American political independence, but William IV admitted that these changes and turmoil in South American politics are indeed the old political struggle style of the 19th century, which is the European template before the First World War, with power, bloody struggle, secret diplomacy, and constant ups and downs of conspiracy. These phenomena reflect the political civilization process of the countries concerned and the political and cultural level of the people. Of course, it is a luxury to change overnight, but understanding this status quo and characteristics should be the premise for moving towards progress. The current world is an era where solving food and clothing is the biggest problem for the country. In the whole world, the countries that can currently solve this problem are only a few grain-producing countries such as Britain, the Netherlands, France, Prussia, the United States, and Argentina. Other countries are slow in progress, and even the capital of many countries has made a fortune from this. The Netherlands is currently an exporter of food, weapons, and industrial products, which is why the Netherlands' international influence has increased. In William IV's plan, in the future, the export of democracy from the Netherlands will become the biggest soft power product. If successful, it can even be exported to countries such as Britain, France, and the United States. Only then will the Netherlands become the world's top country. I think the time will be the highlight of the Netherlands. The Netherlands will not keep this card in the safe for too long, because it will get moldy. Maybe at the beginning of the next century, the United States will be able to use it to interfere with countries around the world. William IV murmured. After speaking, he looked at the encrypted letter sent by the ambassador to France, Jefferson Bryn. William IV was very proud. Everything was going according to his plan. He thought to himself, James Rothschild agreed as expected. As the Rothschild family was vigilant in Europe for protecting the interests of the Jews, and the financial strength of the Rothschild family made other countries wary, the Netherlands gave James and Lionel a door to see hope. If the Jewish people succeed in restoring their country, the Rothschild family will have a place to stay. In the past, Israel's technological research and development was booming in the world, and even in terms of advanced weapons, some of them seem to be more advanced than the United States. The Rothschild family and the forces derived from them must contribute. This new country supported by the Netherlands may be an early Israel in the future, or it may be a financial country backed by the Rothschild family, Singapore or Switzerland. However, they must not have thought that I would choose such a place for them. I think this place will definitely surprise them. Just as William IV was imagining how the Netherlands would control and suppress the Jewish nation after the establishment of the Jewish state, a piece of news came, which made him, who is always calm, show joy. On January 3, 1869, the Kingdom of the Netherlands secretly conducted the first airship test in human history using a battery-powered electric motor in the suburbs of Sydney, an eastern city in the Australian continent. The airship was named Holland, about 55 meters long and 9 meters in diameter at the front. In the early morning of January 3, accompanied by observers from the Far East branch of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences, the Far East Weapons Company untied the cable for a trial voyage. The airship opened the vent valve at an altitude of 300 meters to discharge hydrogen and landed. The landing location was very accurate. The entire trial voyage lasted 30 minutes. After sailing 6 kilometers, it returned to the source and landed. The total voyage was 12 kilometers and the flight speed was 24 kilometers. The airship successfully took off into the sky, albeit for a short time, but it was enough to make this Dutch airship the first manned airship. As a result, the Far East Weapons Company was one step ahead in the airship project with the Dutch East India Company. Chapter 463, Both Holland and England blame. Disraeli claimed that the Netherlands was trying to undermine the rules-based European and international order. On January 5, 1869, Nicholas Pearson, the third Deputy Minister of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, presided over a regular press conference of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A reporter asked that on January 4, when the British Prime Minister met with the visiting Italian Prime Minister Marco Minghetti at 10 Downing Street, he said, "The relationship with the Netherlands is one of the most complex and important relationships between the British Empire and all countries. This relationship is obviously competitive in some aspects. The competition we need is fair. The Netherlands is currently trying to undermine the European international order based on strength rules." Prime Minister Disraeli said that the British Empire does not seek conflict, but strives to ensure a rules-based international order including the European continent. The reporter used this as the topic and asked Nicholas Pearson what he had to say about this. Nicholas Pearson pointed out that Prime Minister Disraeli's remarks ignored the facts and reversed right and wrong. They were full of the British Empire's strength as the world's strongest country, and they wanted to use their weaknesses to counter Britain's strengths. They intended to let countries speak with strength in front of Britain. This is a disguised rule of strength that requires countries to bow their heads when facing Britain. The Netherlands is currently unable to match Britain. I think it is difficult for countries in the world to confront Britain alone. Therefore, the British Prime Minister's remarks are full of arrogance and superiority. The Netherlands firmly opposes this. Nicholas Pearson hosted a global press conference of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Amsterdam for the first time alone. As a star in the Dutch diplomatic community, his reputation attracted reporters from various countries stationed in the Netherlands to attend, just to understand this former Dutch ambassador to Prussia and the future leader of the Dutch diplomatic community. Now it seems that his reasoned and sharp words are immediately revealed. 4 reporters from various countries. Who is more popular than him? Reporters rely on broadcasting news to gain attention, and this is a bonus. Therefore, Nicholas Pearson received warm applause after his speech, and even reporters from British newspapers such as the Financial Times, the Times, and the London Journal joined in. This is the nature of journalists. Nicholas Pearson did not move in the face of the applause. After the applause calmed down, he emphasized, first of all, the Netherlands has always been a builder of European and world peace, a contributor to the current world economic development, and a defender of security order in the Americas, the Far East, Africa, and Europe. The Netherlands has not participated in any war in Europe for more than half a century, nor has it invaded any country in Europe. It will not support high proxy wars on the European continent, and the Netherlands will not use the British's very famous offshore balancing technique to control the balance of power on the European continent in favor of Britain. As for the military groups and other organizations that countries are currently worried about the establishment of the Netherlands is actually established together with some international peace-loving countries to provide a crisis management platform. It has no intention of competing or confronting anyone, but to coexist in harmony with all countries, cooperate for mutual benefit, and build a world where all countries can feel safer. On the contrary, the French Empire is currently invading the Kingdom of Siam, and it seems that it will not stop until it achieves its goal. It is worrying that the casualties of the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam are increasing, and the world economy is therefore hesitant. At the same time, the current ally of the British Empire ruled by Prime Minister Disraeli, the Confederate States of America, seems to be on the verge of civil war. The American Civil War from 1861 to 1867 is still vivid in our memory. Have you noticed that Britain's allies have always had the most internal wars in history? Why? I think this is worth pondering. As soon as Nicholas Pearson finished speaking, the press conference began to buzz. Obviously, many people felt the same way about Nicholas Pearson's deep thoughts. It's true that many of Britain's allies would have internal chaos and even civil wars from time to time. The main reason was that Britain interfered with internal factional forces. Nicholas Pearson meant something, and even several British newspapers had to agree in their hearts that the third Deputy Minister of the Netherlands was really good at talking. Seeing the good effect, Nicholas Pearson went on to comment, Britain is trying to win over the French Empire and Prussia, exaggerate its vigilance against the Netherlands, and intend to provoke a struggle between European powers again to gain the advantage. This kind of rhetoric and means do not seem very clever now, and will not win the hearts of the people, nor will it succeed. Led by the Dutch media, the situation was out of control for a time. Obviously, many countries have suffered losses from the British, so they are fiercely anti-British. British newspaper reporters had to sign that the third Deputy Minister of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs really focused on the hearts of these people, and the anti-British sentiment was suddenly exposed. After a while, Nicholas Pearson continued to criticize. Prime Minister Disraeli claimed in his speech that Britain would not deliberately cause conflicts. This is very hypocritical and not true. Britain has always been the instigator of conflicts all over the world. Some time ago, in the North American Civil War, in the Balkan Peninsula between the Ottoman Empire and Tsarist Russia, don't ask me, I only know that the British diplomatic community boasted about this after the victory of the Crimean War in 1857. There are many more. Britain's history is a history of rising by constantly creating conflicts and launching wars. From the 4 naval battles with the Netherlands to the victory in the naval battle with Spain, Britain has since established its position as a maritime hegemon. After this century, it has been based on the ocean to capture cities and pools on all continents of the world, break through regions, wantonly launch wars, and kill innocent civilians. To this day, Britain is still the same Britain. Facts have proved that it is not the Netherlands that poses a threat to the British Empire, but the UK that is trying to discredit the Netherlands by creating an image of the Netherlands breaking the rules, and then suppressing the Netherlands with the usual means of offshore balancing. The UK's means of dealing with the Netherlands can actually be seen all over the world, such as the United States that split not long ago, the Swedish-Norwegian United Kingdom that almost split, and Belgium and the Netherlands-Luxembourg-Belgium United Kingdom that the UK successfully created. Of course, the Gibraltar and Spain that the UK currently occupies, and there are countless others. Therefore, it is not the Netherlands, but the UK that is increasingly posing a threat to peace and security in Europe and the world. As for the so-called rule-based international order, it is actually just a family rule based on strength formulated by a few countries led by the UK, which serves the hegemonic interests of the UK. The UK requires small and medium-sized countries to abide by these rules, but does not recognize that the UK should abide by the regulations. It uses them if they are in the interests of the UK, and abandons them if they are not. Therefore, Prime Minister Disraeli's criticism of the Netherlands can actually be directly applied to the UK. This is my point of view. Thank you. Quotation mark. Chapter 464, Austro-Hungarian Empire as a core partner? Deep Blue Pacific Partnership will be held in Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands, on January 11, 1869. In addition to the members of the organization, the Netherlands, Spain, the United States of America, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Mexico, the Netherlands also invited the core partners of the organization, the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire to participate. On January 10, 1869, Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, visited Amsterdam. On the first day of his trip to the far east of the Netherlands, he declared that the European and Asia-Pacific policies of the Austro-Hungarian Empire were consistent with the new strategic concept of the seven-nation alliance of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership composed of the Netherlands, Spain, the United States of America, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Mexico. This news filled the sky over the whole of Europe with a foggy atmosphere, including the Austro-Hungarian Empire's powerful rivals, the Kingdom of Prussia, the French Empire, the Russian Empire, the United Kingdom, the Ottoman Empire, and the Kingdom of Italy. They all cast their eyes on the Dutch capital Amsterdam. No one would think that the Netherlands invited the Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to visit for nothing. At present, the Netherlands seems to have entered a diplomatic dilemma due to its poor relations with Britain, France and Prussia. Therefore, any action taken by the Netherlands in the international arena will make people think about it. As one of the major powers in Europe, although the Austro-Hungarian Empire was defeated in 3 border wars in the past 10 years, namely, the Franco-Italian alliance in 1861, the Prussians in 1866 and the Russian Empire in 1867, a lean camel is bigger than a horse. At present, the Austro-Hungarian Empire's war strength is only second to Britain, France, Prussia and Russia in Europe, and is still above the Ottoman Empire. Many people suspect that the Netherlands currently has the support of the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, plus Sweden, Denmark and Spain in Northern Europe. If the Netherlands really gets the Austro-Hungarian Empire to choose to stand on the side of the Netherlands, then the pressure on Britain, France and Prussia will be very large. However, suspicion is still suspicion. As long as Vienna does not recognize it, Britain, France and Prussia are still unwilling to see Austria-Hungary take this step. What they least want to see is that they will become the murderer who forced Austria-Hungary to take this step. On January 10, local time, at the reception held in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, who was visiting the Netherlands, shook hands with Prime Minister Thorbecke of the Netherlands, and the two held a full-day meeting. Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, started his diplomatic schedule by attending the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Summit to be held in the Netherlands. Archduke Rainer Ferdinand held a meeting with Prime Minister Thorbecke of the Netherlands at 3:50 p.m. that day, and attended a welcome dinner hosted by the Dutch cabinet government. At the same time, in Vienna, Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria-Hungary said in a public media interview in the morning, Amsterdam, the Netherlands is the intersection of the Austro-Hungarian Empire's Far East plan, Nordic strategy and global vision, and the new strategic concept of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. The Austro-Hungarian Foreign Ministry official Foreign Minister Bismarck said, "The Deep Blue Pacific Partnership invites many European countries to participate. Austria-Hungary is the core partner of the organization in the future, and we came to Amsterdam to further discuss this cooperation plan." The Austro-Hungarian Foreign Minister declared that the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership plans to adopt the Pacific Partnership 1880 vision at this summit. The organization wants to reach a consensus on common security interests to counter any threats to the security of countries in the Pacific region. Using isolation to counter the great power challenge of Britain, France, Prussia and other countries. At a press conference held locally, Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, said, "I am here to explain that the Austro-Hungarian Empire will actively take the lead in safeguarding the global interests of Europe and the Far East. Of course, the interests of Austria-Hungary come first. According to the instructions of Our Majesty Joseph I, it is difficult for the Austro-Hungarian Empire to safeguard the interests of the Far East alone. What needs to be done now is to work together with like-minded countries." Archduke Rainer Ferdinand also added, "This time we will discuss what kind of cooperation the Austro-Hungarian Empire's partner countries in the Far East want to seek." The Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Organization decided to sign a new Austro-Hungarian Empire Deep Blue Pacific Partnership in the second half of this year. The Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire said, "In the context of the war of the French Empire's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam and the comprehensive security crisis caused by powerful countries such as Britain, France, Prussia and others, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the organization have established a strategic security cooperation relationship that goes beyond military security cooperation. Both sides have agreed to set up a representative office for Austria-Hungary in Sydney, Australia, headquarters of the Deep Blue Pacific Relations Organization, so Austria-Hungary will reach an agreement with them to strengthen intelligence sharing." The diplomatic actions of Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, showed a pro-Dutch diplomatic line centered on the organization. Now, with the seemingly confusing alliance of the three countries under the ambition of Britain, France and Prussia, especially the intensification of the three countries' search for objects to annex, the pattern is forming that the countries are spontaneously forming alliances to be wary of the three countries in order to protect themselves. In this case, rather than posing as a neutral party, the intention of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to clarify the diplomatic line with the principle of maximizing its own interests is included in the actions and speeches of the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Joseph I, Prime Minister Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, and Foreign Minister Bismarck. The first bilateral meeting held by Prime Minister Archduke Rainer Ferdinand in Amsterdam, the Netherlands Austria-Hungary Prime Ministers meeting, also continued this line. Prince Abdul Vasi, Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, who attended the summit of the organization as a core partner together with Austria-Hungary, is a friend of Austria-Hungary in recent years. The two countries jointly fought against the invasion of the Russian Empire in the Balkan Peninsula some time ago. With the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of the Russian Empire Gorchakov becoming the core partner of the organization, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire can cooperate when they need to face this old rival together. Of course, the two countries are more worried about their opponents, such as Britain and Prussia. After all, it seems that their relations with Britain, France and Prussia are deteriorating. On the other hand, regarding the fact that the United Kingdom has privately sent a telegram to Vienna to warn that Austria-Hungary's participation in the Deep Blue Pacific military organization is creating tension in the Pacific, Prime Minister Archduke Rainer Ferdinand said, "We came to Amsterdam not to discuss the problems of Britain, France and Prussia in the English Channel, but to discuss how Austria-Hungary should play a role as a member of the global country. In this regard, the Dutch Thorbecke agreed, Austria-Hungary has the strength to do so." Chapter 465, The next target is the French Empire? London. Queen Victoria looked at Disraeli. At present, it seems that the Netherlands is still one step ahead. Disraeli's face changed. He heard the dissatisfaction of the British Queen in front of him. Yes, he had boasted before that he would teach the Netherlands a lesson during his tenure as Prime Minister, so that the Netherlands would know who is the first power in Europe. This is also why Queen Victoria agreed to his support for the Rothschild family to suppress the Dutch in the United States of America some time ago, intending to interrupt the huge influence of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in North America and restore Britain's influence there. But I didn't expect that the Rothschild family was repelled several times, and they were left with tens of millions of dollars and nearly £2 million. The Rothschild family misled me. Although Disraeli was dissatisfied, as an experienced politician, he naturally would not directly reveal the badness of the Rothschild family or push the responsibility. To retreat in order to advance, or to retreat in order to advance, is the smart way to deal with it at this time. Your Majesty, the Netherlands wants to use this organization to deal with us, but they have forgotten that the contradictions between the three countries are difficult to eliminate in a short time. Moreover, the Netherlands may have been able to suppress other countries before, but with the participation of these three major countries, this organization has become a mixed bag. Queen Victoria blinked her eyelashes and her heart moved. She looked up at Disraeli. Can we get intelligence from this organization? Disraeli faced her doubts. He said, of course. Queen Victoria smiled and said, it is indeed worthy of being elected as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. It is not simple. The Tory party is not bad this time. Prime Minister Disraeli, since you are so sure, then I will not intervene, but I hope to see a good result in the end. Disraeli was delighted. Yes, Your Majesty. Berlin. Bismarck said, it seems that the Netherlands has more and more means. The emergence of organizations is like a spider web. It may be difficult to complete the layout over Europe, but around the Pacific Ocean and South America, it seems that a large network has been cast, so that all countries are under surveillance. What a meticulous plan. William, I said, if this happens, will our plan change? Moltke and Crown Prince Frederick next to him changed color. They all knew what the plan William I was talking about. It was precisely because they knew it that they became more uneasy. Bismarck shook his head. It doesn't seem to have an impact at the moment, but we still need to be on guard. Bismarck turned his head and looked at Chief of Staff Moltke. We need to complete the collection of geographical location intelligence for the entire French Empire as soon as possible. How long will it take? Moltke said steadily, we have reached the town level, and the small administrative units below will take some time. If we want to accurately determine the villages with less than 100 people, it may take another half a year. Seeing Bismarck's impatient expression, Moltke followed up, but that was the previous deployment. Since the situation is urgent, we can send more people to participate. I am sure it can be completed within 3 months. Complete within 3 months. William I looked at Bismarck and said, at the end of April, does the Prime Minister think that this period of time can launch an attack on the French Empire? That's right. If someone other than the few people heard this, they would definitely be shocked. Prussia had just defeated the Austro-Hungarian Empire 2 years ago and completed its current territory. I never thought that it would want to go to war with another country. The most shocking thing is that the opponent is still the French Empire. It is the second largest country in the world after Britain, at least on the surface. Time is indeed a bit tight, and are we not well prepared? Crown Prince Frederick couldn't help asking. It was previously agreed that it would start in the next decade, that is, after 1870, so the plan was all based on that, but now it has to be advanced, and the time is almost a year earlier. The battlefield is changing in an instant, and anything can happen. Without sufficient preparation, it is easy to have unwanted accidents. Frederick is the Crown Prince of Prussia, so he is naturally very worried about his future people. So he couldn't help asking. Your Highness, the Crown Prince is right to worry. It would be best if we have plenty of time, Bismarck said with a wry smile, but looking at the current situation in Europe, it seems that it is difficult for us to get what we want. Although the Dutch are responsible for the problem, they have also helped us a lot. Seeing everyone looking at him, Bismarck smiled and said, don't forget, the current French Empire is not the France of more than a year ago. 1/3 of the conventional troops of the current French Empire are tied up in the Far East, and the economy is sanctioned by many countries under the leadership of the Netherlands. Now the French Empire is anxiously winking at us, Prussia and Britain. Seeing their shocked expressions, Bismarck reminded them, the help of the Netherlands is actually more useful than our preparations. France has actually entered its weakest period in more than 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we are more confident in the war against the French Empire, aren't we? Royal Palace of the Netherlands. Your Majesty, have we been too high profile recently? Hespot von worriedly said, the three countries of Britain, France and Prussia are currently communicating almost constantly, and are obviously consulting on how to deal with the Dutch issue. I am worried that if they come up with a charter, we may end up being squeezed by the three major countries. As a Dutch diplomatic administrator, Hespet van also has his own intelligence resources. According to what he knows, the three countries are in frequent contact, which makes him feel that the storm is coming. That's why he compared with William IV before the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Summit to avoid confusing information, and also expressed his concerns. William IV shook his head and said, "At present, Britain, France and Prussia seem to be in harmony, but in fact they all have their own agendas. The interests of the three countries are not consistent, so it is difficult to accomplish great things. At most, it is a situation that is neither painful nor itchy." William IV suddenly asked Benkei Shan, the director of Dutch International Intelligence, next to him, "By the way, I asked you to keep an eye on Prussia some time ago. Have you found anything so far? I was just about to report to His Majesty." He glanced at Hespet van. After William IV did not respond, he knew that His Majesty was telling him that it was okay, so he said, "Prussia seems to be the main direction of intelligence attack at present, and it is not the United States of America that they seem to be concerned about." Hespet van couldn't help but say, "It's impossible. Could it be Britain?" "That's right, Britain's technology is the most advanced in the world, so it's normal there." But he saw that Mikaspeer didn't comment, so he was obviously wrong. He rolled his eyes and guessed, "Could it be us, the Netherlands?" Mikaspeer didn't seem to want to play games, and gave the answer directly, "No, it's France." Hespet van looked at him incredulously. How could it be France? Why would Prussia do this? He couldn't figure out Prussia's intention. William IV was slightly disappointed. Including the Netherlands, perhaps no one in European countries would really think that Prussia would attack France. Even Hespet van in front of him couldn't think of it. Although Hespet van had experienced a lot with him over the years, it was a pity that he was still framed by the times and covered his eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, The Troublemaking Ally of Strategic Value. The Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Summit will be held in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, for 2 consecutive days starting tomorrow. Under the shadow of France's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam, one of the focus topics is the vision that the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Russian Empire will become the first partner countries to participate in the organization. The outside world originally believed that the Kingdom of Italy also wanted to join, which was not difficult with the support of the Netherlands and many countries in the organization. However, Italy's lack of clear opposition to the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam by France made Spain, which had already fallen out with the French Empire, very dissatisfied. Spanish Italy allegedly supported France and indicated that it would not approve of the country's joining. As the third most powerful country in the Pacific after the Netherlands and the United States of America, Spain is bound to slow down the relevant procedures. Emmanuel II said dissatisfiedly, Spain's statement not only reflects Madrid's long-term dissatisfaction with Italy's lack of effort in jointly dealing with French influence in the Mediterranean, but also shows that Spain does not trust Italy very much strategically. Of course, it is also possible that Spain wants to maintain its position as the only member of the organization in the Mediterranean based on the Mediterranean issue. Italian Prime Minister Marco Minghetti nodded and said, "Your Majesty is right." Following the general election last year, Prime Minister Ramon Narvaez's election situation is unstable due to soaring inflation. His faction in the Spanish parliament continues to use the topic to divert attention. Therefore, showing off Spain's international status will make him and Queen Isabel more popular at home. He said, among the Mediterranean countries, as Spain has begun to undergo diplomatic changes, Spain has repeatedly cooperated closely with the Netherlands in 3 major organizations, including the International Court of Justice in The Hague, the Deep Blue Pacific Organization, and the Hague Security Council. This has caused headaches for Britain and France, but this former troublemaker ally is of great strategic value and is difficult to give up, especially for France. Emmanuel II sighed. France is naturally uneasy about the rise of Spain again, but is also afraid that containment will lead to a strong backlash from Spain. Therefore, it can only rely on Britain for help. Crown Prince Umberto, father and the Prime Minister mean that France is killing 2 birds with 1 stone by suppressing Spain. Britain's suppression has weakened Spain, and Britain can only rely on France to shelter it from the wind and rain. Although Britain is happy to see the West and France become enemies, it is afraid that Spain and France will become enemies or even go to war, so it is willing to be the scapegoat to prevent France from becoming weak and giving others an opportunity to take advantage of it. Emmanuel II looked at his eldest son with admiration and sneered, "No one is stupid." Prussia's silence makes it seem like a hound in Europe is waiting for an opportunity to move. It wants to find a target again after swallowing up the German Confederation countries. The Nordic alliance currently formed by the Netherlands, Sweden and Denmark is to guard against Prussia. The Netherlands established the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership not so much for the peace of the Pacific as it is to establish other organizations to strengthen security ties with other countries. The Hague Security Council also plays such a role. He said to his son, Crown Prince Umberto, Spain's obstruction of Italy's joining the organization's core partner may make the organization unhappy. After all, don't forget that the southern part of member Mexico is being occupied by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The two countries are almost arguing because of the former Mexican Emperor Maximilian I, who was shot and executed by the current President Benito Juárez. It is said that Franz Joseph I has not yet forgiven the Mexican authorities for the murder of his own brother. He looked up at his father King Emmanuel II and Prime Minister Marco Minghetti. After all, Mexico has always been anti-Western. Who told you that Spain was once a colonizer in Latin America? We in Italy can use this as a breakthrough point and let Mexico put pressure on Spain. Prime Minister Marco Minghetti nodded and said, I think Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince's method is good. I think the Netherlands is happy to let us do it ourselves, although the Netherlands is willing to increase its allies rather than see infighting among its allies under the current circumstances. In that case, we can do this, said King Emmanuel II. At present, the attitudes of Britain, France and Prussia are unclear. Each country has more or less hidden worries. In this case, having one more ally is more secure than having one more enemy. However, we should be more responsible and act well. Your Majesty is right. Yes, Father. Italy was very dissatisfied with Spain's blocking of Italy from joining the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. Italian Prime Minister Marco Minghetti claimed to be disappointed with Spain's attitude. He said that Italy would not pose a threat to Spain. On the contrary, Spain should be happy to have one more reliable partner in the Mediterranean. The Spanish government said that Spain has no intention to stop Italy, but Spain hopes to make a final decision after bilateral consultations with Italy on some issues. Spain has no ill feelings or offense towards Italy. Ramon, a famous scholar at the Institute of Political Studies of the University of Madrid, who was born in Spain as a diplomat, admitted in an interview with the European Times in Madrid that Madrid has no intention to prevent Italy from becoming a core partner of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership, but only wants Italy to recognize its security and political concerns. He wrote an article in the newspaper, explaining the two major considerations of the Spanish government. First, the position of Prime Minister Ramon Narvaez reflects Spain's complaints about Italy's position on relations with France. In fact, it is more about Italy's quasi-alliance relationship with Portugal next to Spain, which makes Spain feel attacked from all sides, very dissatisfied, and resentful. In addition, the opposition party in Spain recently recruited troops in Paris and Milan, trying to beg these two countries to intervene in Spain's domestic affairs, which has led to disputes between the two countries. Secondly, Prime Minister Ramon Narvaez decided to pose in a high-profile manner rather than adopt a low-profile diplomacy for electoral reasons. Spain is preparing for the midterm parliamentary elections. Because his support has been balanced at around 60% recently, he dare not make bold moves just above the passing line. Therefore, he wants to prepare for the parliamentary elections in the second half of the year. He hopes to play a key role in the politics of the Mediterranean, Europe and the world to enhance his image as a political strongman. But this does not mean that Spain will give up improving relations with Italy, nor does it mean that the Deep Blue Pacific Organization will completely give up Italy's participation. Of course, Spain will not be kicked out. After all, the organization has no precedent mechanism for forcibly kicking out member states. Chapter 467, Forces Threatening the Dutch Royal Family. William IV of the Dutch Palace said, "No one will ignore Spain's position. Spain has great strategic value. First of all, Spain's military strength. The current number of soldiers has reached 305,000, ranking sixth in the European continent after the Russian Empire, the French Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia, the British Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and ranking first in the International Hague Court Organization. Secondly, Spain's geographical location. Napoleon I, the former emperor of the French Empire, once pointed out that Spain controls the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea and is an important maritime hub for Western Europe to go north. It is close to the African colony and is also the closest land linking Europe and the African continent. I can't imagine how much influence will be left without these organizations in Spain. Thorbecke is currently in charge of receiving the summit member states. Next to William IV is the fourth foreign minister, Hespet van. He said, "The differences between Spain and Britain, France and other countries have not been formed overnight. The fact that Spain has joined various organizations created by the Netherlands shows that the current difficulties faced by Spain are the same as those of the Netherlands. The difference is that the Netherlands is at least in a situation where it has different allies around it, while Spain is in a diplomatic situation everywhere. Even Portugal, the former ally of the Iberian Peninsula, is currently unclear about its ambitions." William IV affirmed, "Yes, Louis I is ambitious. The current internal chaos in Brazil can make the parliament quiet down." When he said this, William IV smiled proudly. Hespet van naturally understood the reason. At present, the rise of Prime Minister Fonseca of Brazil is inseparable from the efforts of the Netherlands behind the scenes. Fonseca is a person close to the Netherlands and Brazil, while Pedro II is pro-Portuguese and pro-British. Therefore, the two will have conflicts both domestically and in international diplomacy. Because of different sources of power, they often have disputes over interests. In the end, the support obtained internationally will determine whose strength will rise and fall. At present, a certain balance has been maintained, but Fonseca seems to be gaining the upper hand. At this time, King Louis I of Portugal has lost the support of Brazil and seems to be much more low-key. "Your Majesty, will Italy feel resentful?" Spain has made it clear that it requires Italy to converge with the members of the Deep Blue Pacific Organization and its position on France. This is very difficult for Italy, which likes to practice Tai Chi. At present, Italy's non-statement makes it difficult for the organization to participate this year under the obstruction of Spain. This has attracted a lot of attention in Europe and even the world. Amsterdam has become the most focused city in the world because of the convening of the summit, which has greatly earned a lot of reputation. The two countries are currently competing for the second position in the Mediterranean, and they don't seem to be in sync on territorial issues. In fact, we can see some signs of this in the International Court of Justice in The Hague. William IV smiled and said, "But this is not a problem. If they are in harmony, we need to worry. Don't forget, if an organization is divided into regions, then the organization is almost disbanded." Hespet van agreed with this. Disputes between other member states have arisen one after another, and it is not the first time that it has hindered the organization's actions. We must keep the line of Brazil well. Seeing Hespet van nod, William IV said, "Italy will not move for the time being." Hespet van. William IV said, "Italy has always been unsteady. This ally does not have much value, but it can trip up its own allies. However, it has not reached that stage yet. It can threaten France, Prussia, etc. and increase its power." Although Hespet van didn't understand why His Majesty William IV looked down on Italy's credibility, it was obvious that His Majesty must have grasped the information from different channels to think so, which made Hespet van even more awed. "Britain doesn't need to be polite at the moment, and the more you curse, the better," William IV instructed. "Will this boost the momentum of the Tories?" "The Whigs seem to be suppressed at the moment," Hespet van asked worriedly. "The Whigs have always been pro-Dutch, while the Tories are just the opposite, and are very dissatisfied with the Netherlands. This also has historical reasons, because in the four naval wars between Britain and the Netherlands in the 17th and 18th centuries, the Tories seemed to be the protagonists, supporting the war against the Netherlands, while the Whigs were the peacemakers. Therefore, on the issue of these two parties, the Dutch government is not inclined to cooperate with the Whigs and does not like to deal with the Tories. We can just observe the layout of Britain's internal affairs, and there is no need to indicate which party we support," William IV warned. "Sometimes what they show may not be true. Who knows if they are playing the good cop and the bad cop in everything to confuse everyone." Hespet van was shocked, and seeing William IV's affirmative expression, it was obvious that His Majesty must have investigated this matter clearly. The British side is so cunning, and they are actually acting? Everything in the world has its pros and cons. Sometimes what you see may not be true, just like our current layout in the United States. William IV said with some self-admiration, How many people in the world know that we are carrying out in-depth cultivation there? Your Majesty, speaking of North America, I have a question. Should I ask it? Say, currently, the Randi family is gaining more and more power in the United States, and the Netherlands East India Office is under the control of Mr. Randy Walton. The current power of the Randi family has caused a lot of discussion in the country. Many political scholars have begun to believe that the government should exercise checks and balances. They say. Haspert Van seemed to be hesitating whether to say it. William IV said nonchalantly, just say whatever you want to say. Haspert Van said, they all say that the Randi family has become a behemoth, which poses a threat to the Dutch royal family, so they suggest that legislation should be enacted to suppress me and protect your Majesty's rule from being affected. As soon as these words came out, William IV suddenly became quiet. Haspert Van clearly felt the rapid breathing of His Majesty, and he felt the atmosphere condensed. After a moment, William IV looked at him, and his sharp eyes seemed to be able to shoot people to death. Haspert Van suddenly felt the pressure doubled, and he dodged his eyes. At this time, William IV's voice was heard. The Randi family is a family loyal to the Netherlands. I believe Randy Walton will not let me down. Of course, I also think that Randy Blythe is grateful to the Netherlands. Finally, William IV smiled and said, of course, their reminders are good. Let's put it this way, people who deal with the Citibank Consortium and the Boston Consortium can relax the scope of cooperation a little bit. As for the mainland, forget it. New companies such as the Far East Weapons Company are emerging. Old Randy is a sensitive person. I don't want to cause any misunderstandings because of this. Just stop there. Chapter 468, Public Opinion Building Sweeping the World. Deep Blue Pacific Partnership 7+3 was held. The prime ministers of the three major European powers, including the French Empire, Britain and Prussia, took the lead in London last month. Media from various countries interpreted that Britain and France tried to win over Prussia to increase their bargaining chips against the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership. The three countries do have the intention of competing with the Pacific Partnership, but the focus is not on confrontation, but on the views of the three most powerful countries in Europe, which account for more than 60% of the total economic output of European countries and more than 30% of the population of European countries, and span the major continents of Europe, Asia, Africa and the United States, on the world order and the future global development path. British Prime Minister Disraeli presided over the three-nation summit and pointed out that it is necessary to solve the practice of tampering with the European order and to stop some countries from taking practices that are not conducive to the stability of the current order in Europe. The British Prime Minister called on the three countries to cooperate and become tougher when someone does something that is not conducive to the common interests of the three countries. The three countries should cooperate to launch a strike and make some tough moves for the interests of the three countries. French Prime Minister Olivier also pointed out that some countries currently do not respect the interests of Britain, France and Prussia, and even the original order in Western Europe has been seriously damaged. He agreed with Disraeli's statement that the three countries should unite to resist and fight together. He particularly mentioned the economic crisis currently facing the French Empire. Even due to the artificial interference of some important industrial and food supply chains led by the Netherlands, global inflation remained high, international financial markets were turbulent, and the world economy, especially the economic growth of the three countries, weakened. Prussian Prime Minister Bismarck asked several major grain-exporting countries led by the Netherlands to adopt responsible economic policies to avoid the negative effects of policies from spilling over again. Bismarck also emphasized that the economic intelligence, instrumentalization and weaponization of Europe and Switzerland will eventually harm others and themselves. However, with the results of the general elections in Portugal and Switzerland, the international cooperation factions in these two countries, which attach importance to the creation of various organizations by the Netherlands, opposed the election of all the members of parliament held hostage by the traditional powers of Britain, France and Prussia. This is unusual in several countries that have long been pro-British and pro-French conservatives. It marks the beginning of a new round of diplomatic autonomy for small and medium-sized countries in Europe, where they no longer follow the will of other countries and follow the diplomacy of powerful countries. In the powerful countries of Europe, serious inflation has also begun to ferment in society. British railway workers launched the largest strike since 1848, demanding promotions and salary increases to cope with rising prices. The Disraeli cabinet government is currently in a state of great headache. In the French parliamentary elections, Oliver's faction defeated Louis Adolphe Thiers, the political opponent of Prime Minister Olivier during the reign of Napoleon III. Speaking of which, he has a rich resume. Louis Adolphe Thiers became a cabinet minister in 1832, the French prime minister from 1834 to 1836, a member of the Constitutional Assembly, a member of the National Assembly, the leader of the opposition, and the former prime minister. What many people don't know is that his heyday will come in a year or two. He will be supported as the first president of the French Third Republic after the Prussian invasion and defeat of Napoleon III in 1871. Although Olivier inherited the largest party and successfully maintained his parliamentary dominance with 52.5% of the votes, the faction led by Louis Adolphe Thiers became the second largest party in the French Empire with 44.8% of the votes. Prime Minister Olivier, who received the full support of Napoleon III, only won 7.4 percentage points, which was very shocking. Global diplomatic autonomy is on the rise. This world may not only be the traditional powers that have the final say and are disappearing, but also the ideology of small and medium-sized countries under these traditional powers will change. In short, France was murmuring about invading Siam, and under the sanctions led by the Netherlands, it became a multinational organization of multiple countries. The convening of the British, French and Prussian summit inevitably reminded people of the taste of emboldening themselves. Under the severe economic sanctions imposed by the Netherlands and other countries on the French Empire, the previously neutral Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire still traded a lot between the British, French and Prussian empires and the organizations led by the Netherlands. Even when facing the current British, French and Prussian empires, these three countries chose to become the core partners of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Organization. This is a disguised support for the Netherlands' approach, indicating that at least on the surface, the three powers are consistent in their opposition to the Netherlands. Of course, many people have not forgotten that the Ottoman Empire was also Britain's only ally in the Middle East before. The two countries had almost the same interests on the Suez Canal, the Black Sea, and the Balkan Peninsula. Moreover, the Ottoman Empire, like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was very wary of the Russian Empire, which was also a core partner. The geopolitical interests of these three countries were very different and even opposed. If it is said that the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire formed a group effort to fight against the three major Western European countries, it would be an exaggeration. However, the proximity of these three super heavyweight countries echoes what William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands said before, that Europe needs a real balance, not just the offshore balancing hand that Britain has successfully created for its own interests. The Netherlands is using the three major Eastern European countries to balance the three major Western European countries, which indicates the end of some traditional hegemonic practices. At the same time, the easing of the opposing positions of the Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary and Tsarist Russia will remind Britain, France and Prussia of their irresponsible economic and political policies, which are also harmful to the world and are backfiring on themselves. The implication is that the Anglo-French-Prussian summit is questioning whether it will benefit world peace and economic stability. Due to the inconsistency between the member countries and core partners of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership and the great powers of Britain, France and Prussia in economic and political interests, the future development is unclear. However, the Netherlands' recent efforts to gain influence in non-European countries are gradually developing. This influence is not military hegemony interventionism, but economic penetration and cultural invasion such as newspapers, which makes the country's position more attractive to the Netherlands. More importantly, the successful experience of the Netherlands, the successful experience of a middle power rising to a great power, the so-called Dutch model or Amsterdam Consensus will become more and more attractive to many backward countries around the world, and they feel that following the Netherlands is not only less threatening, but also more promising. Speed up the development of Dutch influence outside Europe. I hope to win over all the public opinions that European countries currently don't care about to a pro-Dutch position. To this end, I asked the Dutch Ministry of Finance to allocate £1 million to establish several or even dozens of Dutch-friendly foreign organizations. William IV said to Foreign Minister Hubert van with great anticipation, "It is best to use a private way, which is easier to penetrate into various countries. I hope to use 3 to 5 years to make the Netherlands a positive new image of the Netherlands like Santa Claus around the world. At the same time, It is best to make the golden signboard of the Kingdom of the Netherlands a more positive term than the governments of these countries. Do you understand? Chapter 469, Ottoman Empire's Sales Diplomacy. 1869, the 7+3 Summit of the Pacific Partnership Organization and the core partner countries was held. After King William IV and Queen Sandra met with the prime ministers and presidents of various countries at the Royal Palace of the Netherlands, the summit was held under the chairmanship of Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke. Prince Abdulwasi, Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, went to Amsterdam, the Netherlands to attend the summit and completed 12 diplomatic activities. During the 5-day and 4-night visit, Prince Abdulwasi attended the summit of member countries and partner countries of the summit, and participated in the first summit of the Netherlands plus the 3 empires of the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire plus the Netherlands hosted by the Netherlands. At the same time, the prince took advantage of the rare opportunity to hold face-to-face bilateral talks with the prime ministers and presidents of the other 9 countries participating in the summit, which was very tight. On the morning of January 12, Prince Abdulwasi, Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, mentioned to Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the idea of allowing Austro-Hungarian capital to participate in the development of the Ottoman Empire's industry, and discussed with him the opportunity for the 2 countries to open their borders for economic exchanges. He also reached an agreement with Prime Minister Gorchakov of the Russian Empire that the 2 countries would cooperate on border demarcation. The 2 countries even reached an agreement on the Caucasus issue to start jointly exploring actions to ease tensions as soon as possible. When Prime Minister Prince Abdulwasi held talks with Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke, he said that the Ottoman Empire was willing to hold energy exploration with the Dutch government. The prince hoped that the Netherlands would help the Ottoman Empire to conduct oil exploration in the country, and through the signing of the new Dutch territories in the United Arab Emirates and Prussia Qatar, the Ottoman Empire would become a supplier of new energy and oil in the world. In response, Thorbecke agreed to this approach and said that Dutch companies were very willing to participate in this action, but Thorbecke asked the Ottoman Empire to give more help on business issues. The 2 countries also negotiated on the waterways in the eastern Mediterranean, the status of the Kingdom of Greece, and the docking of Dutch ships in the Ottoman Empire. In the end, the Netherlands naturally let the Ottoman Empire get what it wanted and increased the construction of industrial factories in Constantinople. Thorbecke promised to help the Ottoman Empire improve its military weapons capabilities, especially the construction of the navy. After negotiating with these countries, Prince Abdulwasi, the Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, launched sales diplomacy with Spain and other member states. In a prime ministerial meeting with Spanish Prime Minister Ramon Narvaez, the 2 sides also decided to implement regular visits of warships in the eastern and western parts of the Mediterranean. At the same time, the 2 countries promised to coordinate more in diplomacy. This makes people worry about France and Italy. As the Ottoman Empire seemed to be struggling more to break away from the British shackles of several decades, this diplomatic visit clarified the general direction of the Ottoman Empire's diplomacy now, which was to strengthen solidarity in exchanges with European and world countries whose interests did not differ much from those of the Ottoman Empire, while at the same time expanding the Ottoman Empire's role in the international game based on the degree of cooperation differentiated by the convergence of interests. At a press conference in Constantinople, King Abdulaziz I of the Ottoman Empire made a self-evaluation, saying, "The 4 major goals that the Ottoman Empire hopes to achieve on this trip are to safeguard the interests of the Ottoman Empire, to increase the number of sincere partners of the Ottoman Empire, to improve the living environment of the Ottoman Empire, to increase the international influence of the Ottoman Empire, and to establish a global diplomatic network." Now these 4 major goals have been fully met, the Ottoman king said in Constantinople. The international community has already recognized in advance the Ottoman Empire's capabilities and influence in regional geopolitics and comprehensive military strength, and has taken the initiative to propose cooperation. Compared with decades or hundreds of years ago, the Ottoman Empire has increased its international partners a lot. My younger brother Prince Abdulwasi had a good talk with the prime ministers and presidents of 9 countries and established close relations. This also laid the foundation for the smooth conduct of the Ottoman Empire's diplomatic activities at the prime minister level. King Abdulaziz I of the Ottoman Empire also said that the Ottoman Empire plans to set up a representative office to the organization in Sydney, Australia, where the headquarters of the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership and core member states organization in the Dutch Far East is located, within this year. At the same time, Prince Abdul Vasily, Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire; Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire; Prime Minister of the Russian Empire, Gorchakov, and Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who were visiting Amsterdam, all agreed that the cooperation of the four countries is very important for solving regional and global problems. The four countries agreed that the four countries would take a severe approach to France in response to the French Empire's unprovoked invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. The Netherlands is preparing to expand sanctions against French individuals and businessmen. Although the other three countries did not respond directly, they hinted that they would impose more restrictions on France. Obviously, the three major countries are indicating that they will support the Netherlands' fight against France. Even the Ottoman Empire, the Russian Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire took a step and expressed their willingness to participate in the sanctions to a limited extent. After the news came out, Europe was immediately shocked. This is the largest sanction situation France has ever faced. Obviously, the days of the French people will become more and more difficult in the future. However, although the countries were very surprised, they would not really fight against these countries for France. Even London was silent at this time. Obviously, the Disraeli government was unwilling to defend these three countries for Paris. What more people don't know is that the little loser in Berlin, Prussia, is actually enjoying it. An official from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Ottoman Empire said, although the prime ministers of the Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, Tsarist Russia, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands have held a meeting to discuss sanctions, the four countries seem to have prepared a plan to expand sanctions against the French Empire. Regarding the additional sanctions, given that it includes a large number of military factors and a variety of confidential matters, even if the four countries have negotiated and agreed many times, it is not convenient to disclose it now. The Ottoman diplomat pointed out that Prince Abdulwasi created an opportunity to resolve complex disputes with Tsarist Russia at this summit. The two countries will start practical work to repair bilateral relations in the first half of the year. The diplomat said. This time, Prince Abdulvasily met with Prime Minister Gorchakov of the Russian Empire. He felt that the other party was very willing to ease relations with the Ottoman Empire. He had high expectations for the Ottoman Empire and really wanted to establish a good relationship with it. And it creates an atmosphere of top-down, rather than bottom-up. Relations between the two prime ministers should be ready for improvement. Chapter 470, The New Ambassador to Prussia. In addition to holding 3+1 summits with the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands Talbik also actively participated in the purchase of weapons and military industries in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The meeting between the Prime Minister of the Cabinet Government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the President of Mexico Benito Juárez is a representative example. During the Prime Minister plus presidential meeting with Mexico, which was about to bid for the upgrade of Mexican weapons, Talbik directly handed the brochure promoting the advantages of Dutch weapons to Mexican President Benito Juárez. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands responded to this by saying, on November 20 last year, the Mexican Minister of Defense visited Port Adelaide on the Australian continent and inspected the Netherlands Far East Weapons Group, the second largest weapons manufacturer in the Netherlands. He observed many of the latest weapons of the Netherlands on the spot. He was very satisfied with the weapons system of the Netherlands. The two prime ministers and the president also had in-depth exchanges. It is expected that there will be substantial development soon. In addition, when Talbik met with Andrew Johnson, President of the United States of America, both of them attached importance to stabilizing the supply chain of industrial machine tools in the two countries. President Andrew proposed to Prime Minister Talbik that the United States hopes that the Netherlands can continue to provide important industrial machine tools to the United States and expand the import of more machine tools from the Netherlands. Talbik did not object to this, but he required the United States to provide the Netherlands with the use of machine tools, and at the same time required the United States industrial supply chain to be more transparent to the Netherlands. Andrew did not object to this. Therefore, in the international arena, the silent industrial alliance between the two countries has deepened, which will strengthen the future of the second industrial revolution of electrical appliances and stabilize the dominant position of the two countries in its development process. Unlike the United States of America, Denmark and Sweden, which were invited by the Netherlands as special guest countries, paid more attention to the naval issues with the Netherlands. Due to the long coastline of the Baltic Sea and the Norwegian Sea, and the existence of the Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia, and the British Empire, which are all naval powers, Sweden actively developed its navy after stabilizing on land. Stockholm Port, Malmö Port, Gothenburg Port, Oslo Port, and Bergen Port are Sweden's 5 major military and civilian ports, and have now become Sweden's most prosperous ports. Therefore, as one of the most powerful armies in the world, Sweden cooperated with the Dutch Navy to become the Swedish Foreign Prime Minister Karl Wachtmeister. Sweden has a dual prime minister system, and the first one is the Prime Minister of Justice, Count Louis de Geer, who has served from 1858 to the present. Karl Wachtmeister replaced Ludwig, who served as foreign minister for 10 years from 1858 to 1868, and became the new foreign prime minister on June 4, 1868. After the meeting, Thorbecke and Karl Wachtmeister decided to let Sweden be the next steam battleship equipped by the Netherlands as the equipment for their own country. That is, the Netherlands prepared to supply the next steam battleship to Sweden first, making Sweden the 5th country in the world to have a steam battleship after the United Kingdom, France, the Netherlands and the United States. If there is no accident, Sweden will soon become a naval power. In addition, Thorbecke also met with Danish Prime Minister Monrad and decided to strengthen the cooperation between the two countries in shipping. Denmark is one of the countries with the most cargo ships in the world. Its cooperation with the Netherlands will greatly increase the world shipping share of the Netherlands and Denmark. At the same time, the two countries also decided to increase more private cooperation, focusing on William IV and Queen Alexandra to promote bilateral relations and make the two countries closer. The two also agreed to carry out more maritime security maintenance operations in the North Sea at the exit of the Baltic Sea. Some analysts believe that the Dutch government emphasizes the diversification of markets and supply chains because of the learning effect. That is, as the contradictions between the 3 major countries of Britain, France and Prussia and other countries led by the Netherlands intensify, the Netherlands has increasingly close relations with other countries in the supply-side fields such as machine tool technology, which is the best in the world. It cannot be vigilant again by the 3 countries of Britain, France and Prussia using the market to retaliate against the Netherlands, and impose unilateral economic sanctions on the Netherlands in disguise. Prime Minister Thorbecke has achieved considerable results through this diplomatic activity, but while the Netherlands is close to the 3 major countries in the east and the small and medium-sized countries that are now developing around the Netherlands, it also faces the problem of deteriorating relations with Britain, France and Prussia. Britain, France and Europe have clearly expressed their discomfort with the Netherlands hosting the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Organization plus Core Partner Countries Summit. Thorbecke also delivered a keynote speech at the meeting of member states and core member states of the summit, saying, "In the process of the formation of new competitive fields and contradictions, there are signs that we have always adhered to the essence of this European neutral country to prevent being invaded by several major powers. The Netherlands will not tolerate small and medium-sized countries being captured and abandoned at will. To this end, the Netherlands is willing to stand up and set an example. At the same time, in order to better check and balance the big powers, the Netherlands will take more measures to maintain the current evolution of the pattern." Although these words can be understood as a response to the French Empire's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam in the Far East, Thorbecke emphasized the balance of several other major powers based on neutrality and new great power partners, which makes it easy for people to think of the discomfort of the 3 countries of Britain, France and Prussia, which currently have poor relations with the Netherlands. Officials from the Dutch Prime Minister's office were more troublesome, including the 3 major countries of Tsarist Russia, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary. At the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership Plus 3 Summit, all speeches by all 10 member states of the summit mentioned that international relations should respect the national positioning, sovereignty and international rules that are generally recognized by the international community. In particular, they advocated the need to safeguard the interests of small and medium-sized countries. This is not an anti-British, French and Prussian line, but all countries agree that only by abiding by rules and the rule of law, and safeguarding the sovereignty of each country, can the basic cooperative relationship in Europe and even the world be achieved? Berlin. Bismarck looked at Wesman, the new Dutch ambassador to Prussia, with his eyes full of amazement. Just now, he seemed to see the figure of Nicholas Pearson, the former Dutch ambassador to Prussia, the Dutch diplomat with a pair of jeweler's eyes. He has been promoted to the 3rd Deputy Foreign Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the new European politician who has already made his mark in the European diplomatic circles at the age of 33. The Netherlands has a bad relationship with Prussia now. Bismarck asked, As the official representative of the Netherlands to Prussia, I don't think the Netherlands has any sincerity in proposing cooperation to Prussia at this time. Bismarck had been observing the Dutch ambassador to Prussia since he took over from Pearson in 1866. Surprisingly, his diplomatic style was completely different from that of his predecessor. If Pearson was strong and domineering and hit the target with one blow, then Westman was like a frog in boiling water. He managed to gain a foothold in Prussia with his patience. It is said that even the Crown Prince of Prussia, His Royal Highness Frederick, had invited him to several banquets. It can be said that he was very popular. Such a seemingly harmless guy actually made a request that shocked him but also moved him a lot after entering his prime minister's office for the first time. Looking at him, after being quiet for 2 years, he finally showed his potential. Chapter 471, Leaving a Back Door for Prussia? Bismarck looked at Wesman, the Dutch ambassador to Prussia, and finally found that the ambassador looked at him fearlessly. What a courage! Bismarck questioned, if the Netherlands wants to gain Prussia's support, then what Prussia will gain and lose, I think you know it very well. Of course, Wesman turned around and said. In that case, what price will the Netherlands pay? Bismarck sneered, we all hope to get something substantial, not empty. Wesman was secretly alert in his heart. Before, he had already known the promoter in front of him who helped Prussia rise, but that was based on the information, and he had not yet contacted him, so he could not be comprehensive. Even so, he was still looking forward to his first meeting with Bismarck. Pearson's success made him feel pressured and motivated at the same time. If he could complete the task given by Amsterdam this time, he would make a name for himself in the Dutch diplomatic community. He might even want to be like Pearson, who successfully formed the tripartite alliance of the Netherlands, France and Prussia to help the Netherlands, and then let the Netherlands successfully complete the crucial sharp change in the process of power evolution, and then gain the attention of His Majesty William IV. He eventually became a reserve talent for the Dutch foreign minister and even the prime minister. Pearson's success made Wesman see the light. So when he came to Bismarck, although he pretended to be very natural, his nervousness could be seen from his clenched left hand. It was just that this left hand was placed in a place where Bismarck could not see it, so he didn't know it. That's why he told Bismarck's purpose of seeking to see him in a very impactful way as soon as they met. Seeing Bismarck, who was always known for his calmness, suddenly lost his color in front of him for the first time, his nervousness was relieved a lot. However, the cold sweat on his palms did not fade away under Bismarck's questioning eyes. When Wesman heard Bismarck's question, he suppressed his nervousness and pretended to be steady, saying, Our Majesty said that he wanted to see what kind of request Prime Minister Bismarck would make before agreeing to the Dutch request. On the contrary, he asked me to make a request. William IV was actually involved. Bismarck's heart was moved and he looked at Wesman. If it was William IV, then Bismarck had to be cautious. The young king's past deeds made him dare not take it lightly. Seeing this, Wesman secretly thought that Pearson's tip was indeed useful. His Majesty's prestige really made the European political power in front of him afraid. Bismarck paused, then said, I ask? In this case, then I would like to ask on behalf of Prussia, is the Netherlands willing to pass on the technology and craftsmanship of manufacturing steam battleships to Prussian craftsmen? Wesman hesitated, then reluctantly said, if the Kingdom of Prussia is willing to fully support our plan, then Our Majesty and Prime Minister have said that they are willing to pay this price. Bismarck's eyes widened. The Netherlands actually agreed, and it seems that Thorbecke also agreed. The Netherlands is willing to pay such a high price to win over Prussia? Is it worth it? He looked at Wesman again with a scrutinizing look. The Netherlands proposed to ask Prussia to support the Netherlands in becoming the so-called global hub country, a new term that Bismarck was very unfamiliar with. The global hub country, with Wesman's explanation, finally revealed its face. To put it bluntly, the Netherlands wants to become a global financial, economic, and political and diplomatic transportation hub. It seems that William IV and Thorbecke hope that the Netherlands will become a global hub country. It has to be admitted that the countries that currently have close relations with the Netherlands are actually disguised facts. Many countries have tacitly believed that the Netherlands is already a global hub country, and even expect the Netherlands to actively carry out activities on the international stage. This is one of the reasons why countries are scrambling to join the Netherlands when it is currently establishing more international organizations. With the participation of various countries in the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership +3 summit held in Amsterdam, the Netherlands some time ago, This is a large-scale international organization summit held many times in the Netherlands in recent years. Countries including the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire have unanimously recognized the hub status of the Netherlands. They all believe that they need to cooperate with the Netherlands. In order to curb the threats from Britain, France, and Prussia, the Netherlands has won the support of various countries. They all hope to cooperate with the Netherlands to prevent the feasible invasion and damage to the interests of the three countries. Obviously, the strength of the Netherlands has been recognized by various countries. Wesman said slowly, the Netherlands respects the free development of all countries and uses powerful science and technology to help its allies develop their own economies. Prussia currently lacks naval strength, and it is difficult to compete with the French Empire in the navy. It is even inferior to Spain, let alone the British Empire. What do you mean by that? Bismarck stared at Ambassador Wesman and asked. Wesman laughed, and immediately dispersed the tension and regained his calm state of mind. He said, if Prussia is willing to stand on the side of the Netherlands in the next situation, then the Netherlands is willing to help Prussia build a navy that is not weaker than the French Empire, and even better than it. Bismarck's heart suddenly rose, and he suppressed his restless heart. If Prussia can improve its naval shortcomings, then what will be the result of the action against France starting in the second half of this year? Just thinking about it makes him very excited. But he is not an ordinary person. If you get something, you have to give it. So he stared at Wesman again and said, I don't think that if Prussia stands over and leans on the Netherlands will be willing to help Prussia build its navy. Talking to smart people saves effort. He nodded and made a request seriously. Of course, the Netherlands also hopes that Prussia can postpone the war against the French Empire for 1 year. Bismarck was shocked and looked at Wesman in disbelief. How did you know? He stared at Wesman with murderous eyes. If he gave a bad answer, Wesman's life would be at stake. He was absolutely willing to make him disappear from the world. Wesman seemed unaware of the approaching danger. He stared at Bismarck again without fear and smiled faintly. The Netherlands naturally has a way to know your country's every move. Your Excellency the Prime Minister, you can rest assured about this. Don't worry. He emphasized these two words very much. Obviously, what he wanted to show was that every move of Prussia was under our eyes. If you do something unfavorable to me, the Netherlands will also know. As for the consequences, Bismarck did not think that the Netherlands would give up the international reputation that it had built up with great difficulty. Its own diplomatic ambassador died in Prussia for no reason and was ignored. Bismarck even guessed that William IV and Thorbecke might make a fuss about this to ease the relationship with the French Empire, and then reveal Prussia's plan to Paris. Thinking of this, Bismarck's face was very embarrassed. This kind of threat was really uncomfortable. Although it seemed gentle, a threat was a threat. He couldn't help but look at Wesman, who was very calm. What if I say Prussia doesn't want to cooperate with the Netherlands? Wesman shrugged, then the Netherlands has made all the backup plans to deal with other situations. Bismarck was stunned when he heard this, and then said self-deprecatingly, it seems that cooperation is not wrong, but I hope that next time Prussia will not be the threatened party. Wesman smiled and said, the Netherlands has always been the weaker party. Bismarck, but sometimes the momentum is even greater than Prussia. Wesman could only remain silent. On January 15, 1868, the Dutch ambassador reached a secret agreement with Bismarck, and Prussia began to lean towards the Netherlands, while Britain and France knew nothing about it. Chapter 472 My Heartache is in Jerusalem. 18,689, in the royal palace of the Netherlands, William IV was personally meeting two mysterious foreign visitors. The older one was James Rothschild, the second-generation survivor of the Rothschild family and the French financial emperor, who was 79 years old this year. In addition, Lionel Rothschild, the 61-year-old financial king of London, was also there. That's right, William IV met today with the two pillars of the Rothschild family. The Netherlands respects capital freedom, market development of the economy, and respects the rule of law and the rights of the people. There are not many countries like the Netherlands in the world. In Europe, there are probably only a few countries that share such values. Therefore, for countries around the world, the Netherlands is naturally a partner. Although values are not the only factor that determines the diplomacy of various countries, people with decision-making power and diplomats from various countries are more likely to cooperate with people with similar worldviews, so it is important to have common values, which can provide support for strong links. Lionel Rothschild exclaimed. Yes, his uncle James Rothschild agreed, and exclaimed, yes, the Netherlands also has this power. In the eyes of capitalists in European and American countries, it is difficult to find a country like the Netherlands that has economic, military, diplomatic capabilities and industrial technology that is at the forefront of the world. The Netherlands is one of the top 5 economic powers and the most developed country in the world. The International Court of Justice in The Hague, the International Union of Women's Associations, the International Red Cross, the International Labor Union, the Hague Security Council, the Deep Blue Pacific Partnership +3, the South American Alliance, the Germanic Summit, etc. These organizations created and even dominated by the Netherlands have shocked the world every time. These organizations provide different options for countries around the world, and also provide channels for citizens of countries around the world to appeal, so that Dutch overseas groups can provide assistance to countries in difficult situations. Dutch companies such as the Dutch East India Company, the Dutch Far East Weapons Company, and the William Edison Industrial Electric Company are investors and technology owners that are favored by the whole world. Dutch investment is popular everywhere. William IV looked at James Rothschild and his nephew for a while, and smiled. Really, but I think the financial capital of the Rothschild family is what the Netherlands is concerned about. Seeing that both James Rothschild and Lionel Rothschild had unchanged expressions, William IV said nonchalantly, "It is said that Mr. James' health has not been very good recently. I suggest that Mr. James can take some rest and wait until he is stable before continuing to fight for your family." James Rothschild coughed 3 times in a row before he said with a slightly pale face, "Physical recuperation is necessary, but under the current tense situation, the effect of recuperation may not be as fast as the effect of being injured. So I am very embarrassed by your Majesty's kindness." William IV said, "If that's the case, why not let someone take a look and see how serious the illness is before prescribing medicine?" James Rothschild smiled bitterly, "But this doctor is hard to find, and even if we find one, we don't know if it will be effective or if he is a quack." William IV laughed, then said seriously, "So many patients have seen the words of a quack doctor, be careful not to have your reputation ruined. I think since the doctor dares to practice medicine, he must have certain skills and some hidden tricks." James Rothschild's face turned serious when he heard this. He seemed to agree with William IV's statement. Europe in January was still too cold. The temperature in the Netherlands was chilly even at 10 o'clock in the morning. However, the temperature in William IV's reception room was kept at around 20 degrees, which showed that William IV was a person who enjoyed himself. Lionel Rothschild thought to himself, and seeing his uncle James Rothschild was silent, he said, "Your Majesty, what you said is true. I also agree that half of those who dare to stand up are not cowards. Just like the Kingdom of the Netherlands under your Majesty's rule, 10 years ago, no one would have thought that in 10 years the Netherlands would be promoted from a second-rate power with a second-rate economy and a small population of more than 5 million to a stable economic and military power. Even internationally, with the chemical reaction of the organizations my uncle just mentioned and the Netherlands' own strength, the Netherlands' influence does not seem to be weaker than France, and can even be compared with the British Empire. It is far from being comparable to countries like the Russian Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia." Lionel Rothschild looked at William IV hopefully. "Your Majesty, everything that happened in the Netherlands can be described as a miracle. Uncle, I think your Majesty is right. We can believe what the doctor said. It is better to cure the disease than not to cure it." James Rothschild frowned and said, "But it's hard to find a good doctor." Lionel Rothschild smiled and said, "Don't we have His Majesty in front of us? I believe that with the magical development of the Netherlands that has created a world miracle in just a dozen years, the Kingdom of the Netherlands will definitely be able to find the doctor you need as a patient." William IV, "Maybe the Netherlands can do it." James Rothschild, "But your Majesty, isn't the deposit too expensive?" Seeing William IV's face change slightly, Lionel Rothschild hurriedly said, "Uncle, life is more important than anything else, and money is really something outside of the body. Moreover, I believe that His Majesty William will not make things difficult for us." William IV did not comment. Seeing that William IV did not accept the challenge, the two uncle and nephew seemed to be unable to help but said, "Your Majesty, in fact, my uncle's life comes from a heart disease." "Oh," William IV asked curiously, "heart disease? I wonder what happened to Mr. James. What can make Mr. James so stubborn about his heart disease?" James glared at Lionel, then smiled bitterly at William IV and said, "My father, Mayor Rothschild, made a wish that year, which was to help the wish left by our ancestors, that is, the restoration of the Jewish state." He seemed unable to do it and said, "The Jews have been driven out of Jerusalem by the Ottoman Empire for so many years, but our strength is difficult to pose a threat to the Ottoman Empire, so we brothers actually think this is just a delusion. But I didn't expect that my son Edmund had heard from your ambassador to France some time ago that the Netherlands was willing to help us realize this dream of all Jews. We felt that the realization of my father's dying wish was so close to us. Your Majesty also saw it. I brought myself and Lionel, who may be of some use to your Majesty's Netherlands, to show our family's sincerity. This is done only so that your Majesty can help me cure my heart disease and at the same time accomplish what the ancestors of the Rothschild family most wanted to do." After saying this, he looked at William IV with great excitement. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, Finally Conquered the Rothschild Family. At this moment, the expressions of James Rothschild and Lionel Rothschild no longer concealed their inner desire and excitement. As long as the Dutch king in front of the Netherlands agreed, then the Jews would have hope of restoring their country. Although there would be twists and turns, the Netherlands' initiative to mention it was hope for them when no European country dared to help. This was why they ran secretly from Paris and London hundreds of miles away. William IV was waiting for this sentence. He nodded and smiled. The Netherlands is willing to be with a Jewish state. Of course, I hope that from this moment on, the Rothschild family and the Jewish state will always be allies with us, with the Netherlands as the main and the Jewish state as the auxiliary. This is my request. If you agree, then the Netherlands is willing to do its best to help you next. Is this really the request? James Rothschild and Lionel Rothschild looked at each other. Under the attention of William IV, the two finally agreed to the request of William IV, the only one in Europe who was willing to help them restore their country, in the face of the hope of restoring their country. Although they looked like allies, William IV's request had already doomed the Jewish state to appear as a satellite state of the Netherlands. The Rothschild family would also become a dependent force of the Netherlands. Both of them were highly adaptable people, so they both revealed some useful information to Prime Minister William IV. Lionel Rothschild revealed that Crown Prince Edward and Disraeli were in cahoots, and that the two were the vanguards in pushing Britain to deal with William IV and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. As for the attitudes towards these two people, the Dutch intelligence organization did not differ much in terms of intelligence collection, except that it was not as detailed as Lionel. Queen Victoria had an ambiguous attitude towards the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and had not expressed her position on anti-Dutch and easing Dutch tensions. Lionel's views on this point allowed William IV to better understand the ideas of the Queen, who could still rule Britain for more than 30 years. In addition, with these two people as the starting point, the questions and answers between William IV and Lionel even turned into some discoveries that Lionel took the initiative to mention, and this change made James Rothschild next to him think differently. He thought to himself, "It seems that my nephew is determined to restore his country. Well, it seems that it is difficult for the Rothschild family to get off the Dutch pirate ship." So he also joined in the complaint about Napoleon III and the inside story of the French Empire. In fact, with the influence and intelligence capabilities of the Rothschild family in Italy, Prussia, and even the Austro-Hungarian Empire, William IV had a newer understanding of the whole of Europe and even America in the short conversation, which was previously limited to Dutch intelligence collection. "I should be the most successful person in the world at present. Even if I don't have the memory of my previous life, I can get this identity with the intelligence clues provided by the King of the Netherlands and the Rothschild family for decades." William IV looked at the uncle and nephew in front of him and smiled. "The Rothschild family's intelligence is very useful to me. Now, I am really relieved that your family is an ally of the Netherlands." James and Lionel just breathed a sigh of relief, but the next second, William IV's words suddenly made their faces change. It turned out that William IV directly revealed one of the deepest secrets of the Rothschild family. "I hope the Rothschild family can infiltrate our people with the Illuminati and Freemasonry in their hands." William IV smiled at the two people whose faces changed drastically. "That's right, It is the Illuminati, which ranks second among the 10 most powerful and mysterious Western organizations in the previous life, and the Freemasonry, which was born in the UK. Many people think that the Illuminati, which was born in Prussia, later known as Germany, came from the Kingdom of Prussia. In fact, everyone is wrong. It was created by Mayer Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild family. The top 10. Our country had the most historic day in history in 2021. The country pushed an economic stimulus plan with a total scale of 78.9 trillion yen. This plan means that in the upcoming last global harvest of U.S. financial capital, our country will be the first to give up resistance and lie down to be slaughtered. The Japanese yen is the favorite escape currency for the contemporary Knights Templar of the Freemasons. It is essentially a subsidiary currency of the US dollar. This is why the United States supported the rise of its own economy and financial currency. William IV knew that this was just the United States controlling the central bank and currency issuance of a sovereign country, and then buying the country's core high-quality assets. After controlling the country's economic and financial lifeline, it dominated the war and peace of a sovereign country, and on this basis, it created credit expansion and credit tightening according to each historical cycle to reap the country's leaks. The founder of this set of businessmen's game of seeking a country is the ancestor of the two people in front of them, James Rothschild's father and Lionel Rothschild's grandfather Mayer Rothschild. The founder of the Rothschild family's Millennial Foundation was, in William IV's view, a great conspirator who restarted human history in the second half of the 18th century. According to William IV's historical view, this international enhanced version of Liu Buyi, who established the Illuminati and integrated the Freemasons born in Britain, and his descendants, are also the existence that William IV believes is the most threatening to him at present. The reason why James and his nephew were worried was that they didn't understand how many secrets William IV knew about the Rothschild family. Therefore, they were a little uneasy and dissatisfied. Therefore, James's coughing frequency increased. In response, William IV sneered. Before choosing to meet the two, he had already set his sights on the Illuminati and Freemasonry controlled by the two uncles and nephews. That's right, Lionel controls the Freemasonry in the UK, and James controls the Illuminati, which was born in Frankfurt, on the European continent. No one in the world would have thought that this family actually controls the world's two most mysterious organizations. Mr. James' father lived in the 18th century when Mr. Mayer lived. There were many princes in the German Confederation. Mr. Mayer could make friends with General von stationed in the Duchy of Hesse. His monarch was the famous Prince William, the future elector William I. The elector was a senior prince in the Holy Roman Empire and could decide the candidate for the Holy Roman Emperor, so he was called the elector. William IV's statement made the two of them stunned. They didn't understand why William IV turned to introducing old Mayer. William IV smiled and continued, among the militaristic German Confederation princes of Hesse, the more wealthy Grand Duchy of Hesse, which is rich in mercenaries, mainly engages in military outsourcing and makes profits by renting out Hesse's troops to other principalities for combat. Mr. James, am I right? James did not know what William IV meant, but still affirmed, Your Majesty is very knowledgeable about history. This was a disguised admission that what William IV said was not wrong. Chapter 474 The World Government That Terrifies You. William IV laughed and stared meaningfully at James Rothschild and Lionel Rothschild. He sneered secretly, although your financial power is the best in Europe and you think you are mysterious, in fact, everything about you is under my control. In 1769, General von of the Duchy of Hesse, who often took the benefits of Mr. Mayer for free, introduced Mayer to Prince William IX of the Duchy of Hesse. This prince not only loved collecting ancient coins like General von, but was also not good at financial management. Unlike the old Mayer who was proficient in ancient coins of various countries in order to make a living and conduct currency exchange business, Archduke William and General von's hobby of collecting ancient coins was just because of the comparison between the nobles. At this time, the collection of ancient coins in the various principalities within the German Confederation was similar to the collection of antiques in later generations. The ancient currency of a period often represented the highest level of casting technology in a principality, so it won the competition of a number of principalities to collect. After accepting the ancient coins donated by Old Mayer, the Prince of Hesse, William IX, made Old Mayer the financial advisor of Hesse and William's family, and he could use the national tax revenue of Hesse as a guarantee to finance the principality. Old Mayer, who monopolized the domestic and foreign financial business of a prince, quickly became powerful. At this time, Prince William did not know that in his later years, all the savings of his family and the entire country would be plundered by Old Mayor, who he had supported. This Jewish ungrateful person would squeeze out the trust he had gained for decades and turn it into cash. William IV, in 1770, Mr. Mayor Sr. formulated a plan to establish the Illuminati with the intention of ruling the entire German Confederation, and entrusted the specific operations to Adam Weishaupt, who was also a Jew in the German Confederation. In the same year, Mr. Mayor Sr. married his wife Fuder Schnapper. In 1773, the eldest son Amschel Rothschild was born. In 1774, the second son Solomon Rothschild was born. On May 1, 1776, with the support of Mr. Mayor Sr., the Illuminati led by Adam Weishaupt was officially established. Mr. Mayor SR's agent Weishaupt announced the purpose of the Illuminati: to split and disrupt all non-Jewish national governments through political, economic, social and religious means. Destroy all religions and eventually establish a world government ruled by Jewish bankers and scholars. James and Lionel's faces changed for the first time, and James hurriedly explained, "Your Majesty, this should be a misunderstanding. We didn't mean that." He did not deny that the Rothschild family was the force behind the Illuminati, nor did he deny the Rothschild family's control, but he denied that William IV mentioned the latter Jewish vision. Although it must be said that this is the best situation for the Jews, in this era when the 8 characters are not even a beginning, there is always a gap between vision and reality. For example, the Netherlands has just become a reliance for the establishment of the Jewish state, and the purpose of the Illuminati is immediately incredible. Destroy all religions and eventually establish a world-class government. William IV sneered at the two of them, and did not comment on James' words, and said, with the secret financial support of Old Mayor Weishaupt quickly spread the teachings of the Illuminati to the British Freemasonry, and 6 years later at the Williamsburg Freemasonry Conference in 1782, he completed the integration of Freemasonry. James and Lionel looked at each other, their faces changed again, full of worry. This is the biggest secret of Rothschild. If there is any trace of the establishment of the Illuminati, then the integration of Freemasonry is even more secretive. Unexpectedly, William IV can get this secret. Which link went wrong? You must know that Rothschild has hired Jews to serve as senior managers of these 2 civil organizations, but the Netherlands has learned the inside story. It can be seen that the Netherlands has really infiltrated them. It's just that it's difficult to tell whether it's the Freemasons or the Illuminati that have infiltrated them. In fact, both organizations have no secrets in front of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. If this is true, then all the operations of the Rothschild family in recent years have been known to William IV in front of him, and it is even possible that the previous Dutch kings have known this secret. If William IV in front of him takes this secret and exposes it to the world, what kind of situation will the Rothschild family face? Will the Jews and the Rothschild family be jointly eliminated? James and Lionel felt cold all over when they thought of this. The consequences they thought of made them feel scared. When they looked at William IV again, he no longer had the high self-esteem and was waiting for the price. Instead, his waist seemed to bend a little. William IV saw it all. It seemed that he wanted to destroy all the hopes of the two. He wanted to let the last straw sink into the water. During these 6 years, the great conspirator Weishaupt also used the money supported by Old Mayor to recruit 2,000 followers in the German Confederation and all over Europe. These included the best European talents in the fields of science, education, culture, health, and finance. With the support of these people, after 1782, when Weishaupt felt that his power was solid, he and Mayer decided to infiltrate the governments of various European countries and bribe the nobles and elites. This plan was called Weishaupt's 4 Articles by insiders. After that, the Illuminati began to work according to the Weishaupt's 4 Articles. William IV's harmless smile made James, 79, and Lionel, 61, feel a little cold and chilly. Because William IV's appearance showed that he really had this specific information about Rothschild, which was wrong for the two who wanted to improve their status by holding power in their hands. The 4 rules of the Illuminati are the basic tenets of the Illuminati's internal operation. In fact, only the top leaders know about them. William IV actually learned about them, which proves that the Illuminati has indeed been infiltrated by the top leaders. Knowing is not terrible. What is terrible is that William IV will leak what he knows, which will be a death sentence for the Rothschild family and the Jews. The first rule is to use money and bribery to control the governments of various countries, and to blackmail them by threatening financial bankruptcy and public exposure with evidence of bribery to force them to serve the Illuminati. When William IV said this first rule, he couldn't help but sigh that Oldmeyer and Weishaupt are really geniuses. This bad trick is really insidious. Think about those politicians and families in the United States in later generations. I think many of them learned the 4 rules of the Illuminati from the Illuminati. Maybe they are even members of the Illuminati or Freemasonry. Chapter 475 All your powers belong to me. Second, recruit students with international vision in universities, provide them with financial support through scholarships and other means, and continuously create new forces for the Illuminati. This is to create fresh blood, and in a globalized world. Obviously, Oldmeyer and Weishaupt have big plans. Third, while putting the blackmailed politicians in the front, it is also necessary to recruit academic and scientific authorities in various fields behind the scenes to continue to influence the policies of various countries, and unite with chaebols and bankers from various countries to form interest groups to continue to intervene in politics. William IV looked at the uncle and nephew in front of him, and smiled and reminded them, many of the deep governments in Europe such as Britain, France, and Prussia originated here. The Illuminati currently has a huge influence in various countries. This is also an important factor in the maintenance of the Rothschild family's financial hegemony. Of course, the most important thing is that after the Illuminati merged with Freemasonry, they ensured that the 2 organizations had absolute control over the news in Europe since 1782, so that all the information obtained by the public was biased, and the public subtly recognized the Illuminati and the concept of world government. William IV said this and sighed. In the previous life, when he knew about the 4 articles of weight created in 1782, he was shocked, because from this time period, it seemed that the world was really moving in the direction set by Oldmeyer and Weishaupt. In the 20th century, the Rothschild family was the most powerful family in the world until World War II, and the International League, the predecessor of the United Nations, established after World War I, was actually the vision of a world government realized by the joint promotion of the Illuminati and Freemasonry. Isn't it terrible? In addition, the major organizations led by the Dutch government under the promotion of William IV were actually established under the promotion of the Illuminati in the previous life. These transnational organizations are eroding the power of national governments in various countries, and gradually weakening their national unity. This is what the Illuminati needs. In fact, some people in the previous life were brainwashed in this way. After being brainwashed, these people put their nation aside and thought that they were world citizens. They should focus on the world pattern instead of their own nation. They are called world citizens, but in fact they are just tools used by others to weaken their nation. Therefore, William IV did not underestimate the uncle and nephew in front of him. He was even more interested in taking the tools in their hands and using them for his own use. I actually learned from the Illuminati when I established those international organizations before. So to a certain extent, I actually took the same route as Oldmeyer and Weishaupt, except that his other identity is the monarch of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but the same thing is that he also wants to turn the Dutch people in various countries into another future Jewish people. Among them, the United States of America, where the Dutch are currently in charge of a country's power, is the best experiment. Based on this, the Dutch had already infiltrated various countries before the Jews, but the Jews infiltrated further in Europe, while the Dutch were even better in America. James and Lionel looked at William IV in disbelief. They didn't expect William IV to be so open-hearted. The two couldn't help but think of this past family history. And William IV also consulted the historical documents he was familiar with. In 1777, the third son of Mayer Sr. was born, that is, Nathan Rothschild, the father of Lionel in front of him. In 1784, Adam Weishaupt issued an order requiring Maximilien Robespierre to launch the French Revolution. The notice was written by his accomplice Xavier Zavac and sent to Paris by the Illuminati messenger Lanz from Frankfurt. Then Lanz was struck by lightning on the way, and the letter was intercepted by the Kingdom of Bavaria. The Kingdom of Bavaria raided the location of the Grand Orient Freemasonry and warned France that a conspiracy group had emerged to use war and revolution to achieve the Macintosh, and France was about to undergo a revolution and civil war, but was ignored by King Louis V of France. However, the Bavarian government declared the Illuminati an illegal organization, banned all the Grand Orient Freemasonry in the Bavarian Kingdom and began to hunt down Illuminati members. Adam Weishaupt fled to the East German Confederation, while Mr. Mayer moved to a 5-story house in Frankfurt and established a friendship with the Schiff family. It was not until 100 years later that Jacob Schiff, an outstanding descendant of the Schiff family and an agent and spy of the Rothschild family, went to the United States and completed the thorough infiltration of the Illuminati Freemasonry into the United States, and left his name in history as a financial strategist. In 1786, the Kingdom of Bavaria published a document called The Original Works of the Illuminati, which contained a large number of details of the conspiracy of Illuminati members to infiltrate governments of various countries. The Kingdom of Bavaria sent this document to all churches, kings and prime ministers in Europe, but unfortunately, this warning that could save the world was ignored without exception. Because the royal families of European countries arrogantly ignored the warnings issued by the Kingdom of Bavaria, the French Revolution planned by the Illuminati finally broke out. This revolution realized the dream of German Jewish bankers. After the revolution, France formulated a new constitution and prohibited the Roman Catholic Church from levying a 10th tax on industry, commerce and finance. That is, the Church previously levied a heavy tax of 1/10 on industrial and commercial income tax, thus reducing the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, while the Illuminati and Freemasonry increased their strength. At the same time, this wave of enthusiasm backfired and surged to the principalities of the German Confederation. Even the royal families of Britain and other countries were in danger because of what happened in France. The Rothschild family took the opportunity to use the Illuminati and Freemasonry to infiltrate the financial industries of various countries. In the end, the fully fledged old mayor arrogantly declared that as long as he issued and controlled a country's currency, he didn't care about the laws made. In 1791, the Rothschild family successfully established a Chinese bank called the First Bank of the United States in the United States through the lobbying of Alexander Hamilton, the founding father of the United States, who was lurking in the cabinet of Washington, the founding father of the United States, and thus obtained the right to issue in the United States for the first time. Unfortunately, it was later defeated by the third president, President Jefferson. In 1798, whistleblowers appeared one after another. Professor John Robinson of the University of Edinburgh in Scotland published a book titled Evidence of Conspiracy Against European Churches and Governments at Secret Meetings of Freemasonry and Illuminati to expose the conspiracy of the Jude. Robinson was the top intellectual of his time, and he himself was elected Secretary General of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. In the same year, Harvard University President David Poppin began to discuss the influence of the Illuminati on American politics and religion with students at the graduation ceremony. This opened the prelude for the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, the fourth President, James Madison, and the fifth President, James Monroe, to take the lead in suppressing the influence of the Rothschild family, the Illuminati, and the Freemasons. This is also the reason why after Alexander Hamilton was shot to death in 1804, his Federalist Party, which was once the largest party in the United States, was raised and divided shortly after his death. However, in Europe, the five sons of the old mayor relied on his accumulated influence in Frankfurt, London, Vienna, Paris, and Naples to dominate the financial world and become the financial emperors of their countries. It can be said that they were powerful, and the Rothschild family became the largest united force in the financial world. William Ivey looked at the two and said, "What do you think? I want the Illuminati and the Freemasons. Of course, I am not a person who will destroy the bridge after crossing the river. They are where you Rothschild family and the Jews live. I just need to arrange people to participate in the operation." Seeing the two people's intention after he took a step back, William Ivey went further and said, "I only need to share the resources with you, and the news about them, your Rothschild family and the Dutch royal family will be top secret information among the three of us. In other words, I will not participate in your operations as I did before, but when the interests of the Dutch royal family are damaged, we must give priority to helping the Dutch royal family rule." At this point, James and Lionel could no longer resist. What's more, what William Ivey could provide them was actually equivalent to the deduction of their payment. They deeply understood that there was no support in this world without reason, and all support came from transactions. The transaction in front of them was actually not unacceptable to them, although letting William Ivey participate in it might make them feel uncomfortable. After all, this was the deepest secret organization of the Jews and a tool for them to make a living. If the Dutch royal family is involved, there will be many unexpected events. But at the same time, the participation of the Dutch royal family will, in turn, be equivalent to dragging William Ivey into the water. The Dutch royal family will face the same situation of being criticized by thousands of people as the Rothschild family. At that time, they don't believe that William IV will be better than them. What's more, as mentioned earlier, the Dutch royal family can make the Rothschild family's influence wider, at least in the current struggle between the Rothschild family and the Dutch in the United States. It will be alleviated. It won't be as incompatible as it is now. Thinking of this, Lionel raised his head, looked at his uncle James, and nodded. James seemed to have thought of the same thing. In the end, James still betrayed the two organizations. Although William IV kept his dignity on his face, he was overjoyed in his heart. If the Netherlands has become a great power by developing itself into the world's sixth largest economy and expanding its territory in the Far East in Africa, then taking down the Rothschild family's alliance and the two major organizations on which the family depends for survival has made the Netherlands one of the countries with the strongest foundation. Even William IV can be said to be the best in Europe. The only thing that the Netherlands lacks at present is the most critical issue of accelerating population reproduction. As long as it is solved, then in terms of technology, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, with the Rothschild family's allegiance, will have eyes to peek into the industrial and technological secrets of any country. It is no longer a dream for the Netherlands to know the bottom-of-the-box technologies of various countries. It can be imagined that just like the future network technology, when you save the industrial secret technology on the network, it has actually been intercepted by the Netherlands through the network. And this is one of the roles that William IV will play for the Rothschild family, the Illuminati, and the Freemasons in the future. As for the others, they will naturally have other uses. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.